Our guest today was the center of attention in Kenneth Starr's 1994 media-frenzied trial of President Clinton and the Whitewater investigation, Miss Susan McDougal. As a young lady, this small-town Ouachita Baptist College student was swept off her feet by the flamboyant, worldly, and well-read campus professor, Mr. Jim McDougal. After a whirlwind courtship filled with impressive parties and introductions to important politicians and successful businessmen, Susan found herself married to Jim, a man much older than herself, who unknowingly to both of them at the time suffered from a mental illness that would later be diagnosed as bipolar disorder. In her book, aptly titled The Girl That Wouldn't Talk, Susan tells her side of the story, from the beginning of her life in Camden, Arkansas, to finding herself shackled and jailed in no less than 7 prisons over a 2-year period, a cruel tactic known as diesel therapy by the prosecution. This is a disheartening story, an eye-opener into the abuse of judicial power, fake media, and corrupt politics. But it is also a story of how one woman took a stand to speak no more and unexpectedly took her life back. It is my great pleasure to welcome to the table and microphone the strong, courageous, well-read, and a once too naive young lady, the notable Miss Susan McDougal.
I think we're done. I think that's all we need to know. I myself am impressed.
That really is you.
And the marriage sounds so much more fun than it actually was at the time. Jim was 14 years older than me, so that's really not that much older. He just looked old.
That's pretty much old. That's pretty old. How old were you?
I was
18, 19?
22. I'd graduated from college.
But not when you met him and started dating him.
Not when I met him, but it was the year before, and he always had a trip to Washington, and the seniors went, and that's where I met him, and then I married him after college. And
so you're 20, and he's 15 years older. That's almost twice your age, if you look at it like that.
He was old. I get it. I'm totally on your side now. He was old.
Yeah, you're nice. You're always nice.
He was funny, though. He was really funny, and that went a long way toward bridging the gap in the ages. He talked like you were reading the greatest book in the world. Just talking with him every day was hilarious and funny. I never saw anyone who didn't love talking to him because he was a guy who leaned into the story with you and had all the facts and all of the color, and he knew everything pretty much to a 22-year-old girl from Camden, Arkansas. It really was astonishing.
You were born in Camden, Arkansas. Tell us about your mother and father and how they met.
I was not. My father was in the U.S. military, and he met my mother during the Second World War in a bomb shelter when the Nazis were trying to kill everyone in Europe. My mother was very impressed with the tall, 6'2", blonde, blue-eyed, handsome guy from Arkansas, and went and she took him home and fed him, and that was the end of that story.
Or the beginning of that story.
Yeah, that was the end of the meeting, but the beginning of life. And I was born in Heidelberg, 7 brothers and sisters, and they were married all over Europe where my dad was stationed. So we had quite a life growing up. And we all felt like we were in the Army. Every time my dad got, papers to move, we all packed our little bags and went wherever he went. So we were an Army family. We were a military family. All for one and one for all. Stand up for your country.
How old were you when you got to
Salute
Camden?
the flag.
Thank you.
Say the
Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of Allegiance. Know America the Beautiful. We were a very military family growing up. And that
you gave speeches at the American Legion, didn't you?
I won an award from the American Legion and a scholarship because we were true believers. My mother was Belgian, and my mother saw what the Nazis were doing to Europe, and the only thing that stopped them were the American troops that came to her hometown, and she thought, this is a country that comes where they know no one and saves people's lives. She thought it was the greatest country ever. She couldn't wait to move here and to be American. And she raised all of us.
And then she ends up in Camden. I bet she was a little shocked.
She was. She was from a huge university city in Belgium and had gone to school to be a doctor when the Nazis closed the schools to anyone who.
So Camden doesn't have an Air Force base. Why Camden?
My dad was
Oh, that's his family's
around
from there. Oh,
yes,
gotcha.
from around there. Mm-hmm.
So why'd you decide to go to OBU, Ouachita Baptist University?
I think it was because I didn't decide. My parents wanted me to be close. Our family's very tight-knit, and they did not want me to leave. In fact, the first weekend I went to Ouachita, I went back home, and everyone was lined up in the driveway waiting for me. And I got out of the car, and my dad said, "You don't have to go back." And I was thinking, well, good, because I miss all you all. My mother said, "Oh, she has to go back." Yeah, we were just very close.
So you're at OBU. You're studying what? Do you remember?
The way I met Jim McDougal was taking political science courses. He was head of the political science department at Ouachita, and I took some political science courses. I was interested in that.
Was that your major?
No, it wasn't. Speech was my major.
Oh. And then how did he ask you out? How did you first end up going out with him?
I locked his office door. I was doing some work for another professor in there, and by accident I locked his door, and he kicked the door down. And I thought, this is a guy I need to know. I thought that was pretty cool. Looking back on it, that was the beginning of my I should have run. But actually I thought, this guy kicked this huge wooden door down because it was locked and we could have gotten a key. But I thought it was rather chivalrous. I was outside the office, needed to get in. I know. Yeah, I love the faces you two were making. Why weren't you there at the time? Where were you?
Speaks to your, I feel like your
naivety.
Like, oh, this guy's cool. He's kicking down doors.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And he's scrawny. He doesn't look like he could kick down doors, does he?
He wasn't scrawny.
He wasn't?
He wasn't.
I remember.
He was tall and thin, but he wasn't scrawny. He was pretty macho guy.
So what was the courtship like?
Listening to him talk, just listening to him and meeting a bunch of his friends. He'd worked for Senator Fulbright, and he knew he'd worked on the Hill for Senator McClelland.
You met Claudia and Bob Riley through him. Is that correct?
That's right. They were his closest friends, I would say, because when Bob became governor for that short period of time, when Senator Pryor that went to Washington, and there was a wait for the election. He had been appointed, and Bob was in the governor's office, and Jim helped him run it.
And Bob Riley was a lieutenant governor at the time?
That's right, and became governor.
Mm-hmm. And Jim helped him run that. Did y'all move? Were you married at that time?
No, that was long before.
And you met Bill and Hillary Clinton during that time?
Well, yes.
Because they were at parties you went to.
Bill Clinton had worked for Fulbright. Jim had gotten him the job. They were like, Bill looked up to Jim. He had worked for Fulbright forever, and that was a pretty prestigious appointment at the time. And he loved Bill Clinton, just loved him, thought he was funny and smart and a great person to know in Arkansas in upcoming politics. You know, he was going to be great, and Jim could see that.
What was Bill's position at the time? He wasn't governor.
No, he was a kid driving Fulbright around in an election when Jim met him. That was his first job, was driving Fulbright around and losing the car. He was always losing the car, and Fulbright was furious. He said, "Who is this you've hired to drive me around? He never knows where he's parked the car." And so that was the beginning of the funny stories about Bill Clinton working for Fulbright and Jim being, you know, his boss.
And didn't Bill Clinton talk Fulbright's ear off, and he one time said something like, "Don't ever let that kid drive me around anymore"?
That's in the book, I think, yes.
Yeah, I'm like, I can just hear Bill Clinton talking somebody's ear off.
Yeah, and thinking they want to hear it, you know. Never being shy about talking anybody's ear off. Yes, I'm sure they want to hear from me, would have been the attitude.
Yeah, and I remember in the book you mentioned meeting Jim Guy Tucker, who was at the time breathtakingly handsome.
True. There were posters in my dorm. I was still in school. There were posters in my dorm of Jim Guy.
Because what was he at that time?
Attorney General.
And girls had posters of him in your dorm room, like a model.
Yeah, like a big, like maybe vote for Jim Guy Tucker. This huge posters in their room.
Oh my gosh,
he was startlingly good looking.
Startlingly. I
And
agree.
nice. And well-spoken and well-educated. I mean, this is not someone you just bump into on the streets.
Ernie Dumas called him a swashbuckler because he was a Marine and he
Wasn't he the one that sailed on a freight ship across the Pacific
during the Vietnam War because
because he wanted to go take pictures.
Yeah, and he infiltrated the prison to find out what was problem with the prisons, and he was very gregarious swashbuckler. Yeah,
Yeah.
Your wedding day. Tell us about your wedding day. So Jim's kind of. You haven't really said yes, so to speak, to Jim about the wedding. He's just kind of railroaded you into this wedding.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably true. I think that's probably true. It was like I didn't have a plan. And he had a plan. And I thought, well, I can do this for a while. And so that was kind of the thinking at the time. It was the 70s. Let's not forget. It's not today. And we got married at a little house that he had bought out in the country that was once a goat house. And he had redone it with all kinds of crazy wallpaper and things. It was funny. When you walked in, you had to laugh because Jim had done the decorating himself.
Oh, I'd be furious.
Oh, no. He was living there. I wasn't living there, and I didn't care. I mean, no, this is a goat house. This is not a house you really get your emotions involved in.
Oh, okay.
And the story, I think, is in the book where I'm lying on the rug, the new carpet in the house, and the whatever gets on goats is crawling across.
Fleas?
No, legs and things like that.
Spiders?
Ticks, something
ticks.
like that, yeah. And you could just see them. I mean, it's not like he had the place fumigated or anything. He just laid very expensive, lovely carpet and had the thing painted and
on
wallpapered.
top of the dirt floor?
I don't know. I didn't ask those questions. I'm just saying it wasn't well done. I'll say. And it was frightening. And it had, the only heat in the house was a pot-bellied stove that had a pipe like Lincoln must have lived with. And there was no stove or anything in the kitchen and no microwave. I don't even think microwaves were made yet. There was just cabinets and a refrigerator.
What a paradox.
Yeah, we had Fulbright there once. We had him to lunch. And
In the goat house?
Yes, and Mrs. Fulbright said, I don't believe I've ever seen a kitchen that didn't have a stove in it. Jim didn't care. I mean, really, that sort of accoutrement, that sort of, dressing things up, it is what it is. Come see us. Yeah, we had Bill Clinton stay there one night. It was just what it was,
It's like camping out almost. So you got married in
No, it had nice furniture. It had very expensive, nice furniture in the
goat house.
Goat house, yes.
So you got married in the front yard of the goat house.
That's true.
Tell us about that. And I bet a lot of people came to that.
No, not really.
Oh.
Bill Clinton came. Bob and Claudia came. Bob married us. He was blind, so he didn't have anything to read from, and he just kept saying the same thing over and over again. Do you take this person? Do you take this person? Do you? And I thought, my God, we're going to be here all day. He didn't know the lines, evidently. It was very funny. And what else?
It was raining.
No, I don't think it was raining.
You were barefoot.
I was barefoot. That it was the 70s. I had flowers in my hair. I had a long 70s dress.
I think in the book you said it had been raining and there was mud.
Oh, there had been raining, yes.
Yes.
And the little flowers that had been planted and put out and everything, they were gone. They were in the mud, yes. It looked like a mud track.
So
but it was what it was. It wasn't like either of us said, oh my God, we have to reboot.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's coming.
You're not putting on airs, that's for sure.
No. That would not be something we ever really did. Do.
Yes. What is Jim's business when you met him?
That really would have been, I think,
What?
the worst thing that Jim would have seen in someone is that they were putting on airs.
He didn't like that.
Yeah, Fulbright didn't do that. I mean, Fulbright would buy a peach in the grocery store and complain about how much it cost. He's a multi-billionaire. I mean, no airs.
Yeah.
Everybody's
so pretentious these days, it seems like.
We had bought this bank downtown, and we really spent a lot of money making it cool inside. And he had an office that was upstairs that was just really beautiful and soft, and he wouldn't go up there. I could not get him in his office When I finally got him in there, Bill Clinton came from running one day and got sweat on his leather chairs in there. He said, "This is why we don't need these things. We just need to, stay in the basics. Look at the sweat on the chairs."
The things you remember.
I think you have to laugh. Oh,
it's hilarious.
You have to. Yeah, and he was funny. Mm-hmm. And he thought he was funny, and everyone thought he was funny.
What was Jim's business? Real estate? He was good at it too, wasn't he? When you married him, was it real estate?
Yes. He was mostly, working in politics, local politics. If you go to the polls, remember Boyce and make him your choice. Arkansas's own Sam Boyce. Do you remember him? He ran for governor?
No.
Oh, great guy. Great Democrat. His son is now like a AG somewhere. I mean, big legal family. Great friends of Bob and Claudia. And Jim started working in local elections. And
so Jim didn't write jingles, though?
No, I just remember that because I was a kid. I like that song.
Mm-hmm. I have some political jingles stuck in my head that will never leave, too.
Yes.
Pin a rose on me, I'm for Roseman. You remember that one? No.
No, thankfully. No.
All right. So Jim is a successful in local politics, but he dabbles in real estate.
Yeah, he kept Faubus out of being nominated for the Democratic nomination once before he actually was made governor. I mean, he was active in making happen what he and others thought was good for Arkansas. And he was very, I would say, in the middle of it all.
And idealistic. It was the 70s, like you said.
So idealistic, yes. He loved Adlai Stevenson. I mean, he could quote speeches from Adlai Stevenson.
Yeah. So you are going to Fayetteville to look at some property that he's thinking about buying, and you go through a little town, and you to have lunch, and there's a bank there, the Bank of Kingston, and it's for sale.
Yes.
What happens? What does Jim do? This is.
I really need the crown for "This Is Your Life." That's what this feels like. This is like horrors. Yes, I do remember. I recall that. What do they say in grand juries? I don't recall that.
But he buys that bank.
Yeah, he bought that bank.
Not just anybody can buy a bank. Or did he get a partner?
Yeah, Steve Smith in Bill Clinton's office was his partner in that. They were both working in the governor's office.
So who's the governor at this time?
Bill Clinton.
Oh, so this is years later. Jim's been successful in his real estate deals for several years. He's now working in the governor's office with Steve, you said, and he's still dabbling in real estate. So he drives up to Fayetteville to look at some real estate and sees this bank for sale. Calls Steve, and Steve says, "Sure, I'll buy a bank with you."
Well, Jim was the kind of person that was always looking for something to do, to buy, to resell, to make into something else. It was a passion. And
sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, he was always looking for something to reconfigure. And this little bank was adorable. It really was. It had a big ball safe in the window of the bank. Back in the old days, if fire or something broke out and all the money and the stuff was in the big ball, the bottom would melt. It had a little melty bottom, and it would roll out the window and down the street.
Now, say that again.
Okay.
It's a ball.
It's huge. It's as big as
room,
that
right?
door.
Okay.
It's big as a regular door.
It's round,
7 feet.
though. As
7
big as
feet
that
round.
wall. As big as that wall right there. And you look in the window, and there it is. And it's black, and it's gold lettered, Bank of Kingston, with a little gold handle thing. And it's on a plateau-looking thing, stand, that is supposed to melt in case of fire. And it's in the window so that it rolls out of the bank and is saved. We just thought that was the coolest thing ever.
I still think that's the coolest thing ever. I've never heard of anything like that. So it's on a wax base, I guess.
Some kind of base that melts before the safe does.
Okay, what do y'all do with it? Leave it at the window?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, of course. And we found they had taken a chainsaw and sawed off the teller's windows, and they were like the ones down in the post office here in downtown Little Rock. They were those brass, beautiful. Do you know what I'm talking? Mm-hmm. And he had them put back up, and it was...
You found them in the basement or somewhere?
In the back of the bank, yes. And it had one phone when we bought it. It was on the wall, and anyone who used the phone went over to the wall and said, Bank of Kingston. So we had all new phones and all computers put in. It was fun.
That sounds like a blast.
It was bringing it into the 21st century, and it was really fun. And the guy who ran it, Gary Bunch, was like... just the coolest guy ever. I mean, you just couldn't meet anyone. He rodeoed, he rode bulls, he was good looking, he was funny, he was macho, he knew everyone in Madison County. He knew everyone who had money at the bank, and everyone trusted him. He was from an old family.
Was he smart too, I guess?
Oh, yeah, he was, yes.
Everything.
He was just perfect.
Did Whitewater go after him too? Please tell me no then.
I don't think so. I think
they went through everybody.
You asked me if he was intelligent. I think he was intelligent and just stayed out of all of that. He wasn't in politics, and he wasn't in any of those things.
Yeah, but Whitewater, when they came to town, they didn't care if you were in politics or not. They went after everybody. It seemed like that even barely knew you. They were like, "Well, we're just going to go," or Bill Clinton or any of y'all.
Yeah, he ruined a lot of lives. In the trial that I had, people got on the stand and wept and sobbed over the fact they'd lost everything they had trying to defend themselves. And then not convicted of anything.
Yes.
Just charged, and then your life ruined, and nothing came of it. And it was, I think, a tactic to make people lie. And
it absolutely was.
Yes.
All right, this is a great place to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Miss Susan McDougal, known as the woman that wouldn't talk during the Whitewater trial of the mid-'90s. Still to come, just what she said, how many people's lives were ruined by the Whitewater trial. The story of Madison Guarantee, which became the target of the Whitewater investigation and ruined a lot of people's lives there. The Whitewater real estate development, what was it? It was pretty simple. We're going to tell you what it is. What Susan was accused of, what Susan was convicted of, and what she learned in her 2-year incarceration in 7 different jails. A torturous tactic by the prosecution known as diesel therapy. And last, what she's doing today and why she chose to come back to Arkansas. We'll be back after the break.
Do you have something to say? Say it in flying colors. I'm Megan McCoy, and my family owns and operates flagandbanner.com. We believe that flags tell a story and banners make an impression. Whether it's for your business, organization, or special event, custom flags and banners will make your message soar. Visit flagandbanner.com for high-quality products and quick turnaround. We're not just any flag company. We're the experts that answer the phone.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Miss Susan McDougal, the defendant and the woman that wouldn't talk in the 1994 Whitewater investigation and trial. Before the break, we talked about Susan being from Camden, being an Army brat, about meeting Jim McDougal, who kicked in the door and impressed her with his macho-ness, then how she ended up getting married at the Goat House, and then ended up owning a bank in Kingston. And that's just the beginning of the story. Wait till you hear the good stuff. So now we own a bank in a small bank in Kingston, which I'm kind of jealous of. That sounded like a lot of fun to redo. Are you living in that little city?
Oh, yes. We moved up there.
Okay. But Jim sees an opportunity for a business in Little Rock because he's missing, I think, the big city. And he founded Madison Guarantee Savings and Loan. Tell us how that came about.
Madison actually was for sale. It was one little small savings and loan in a very small town in Arkansas, which I can't remember. And he bought it and branched it to a lot of different cities. And he did the major bank savings and loan. He bought that building and redid it. And it was the major.
In downtown Little Rock, Arkansas.
Yes.
It was very impressive. And this is more about, at the opening, we talked about how Jim was bipolar. So when he had upswings, he had major upswings. And he had a customer, I think, who was a Mercedes dealership, and he wanted all the people in his in his that worked for him, the tellers and everybody, to have Mercedes in the parking lot?
He bought people a lot of things. He bought them clothes from the lovely store for men here in Little Rock, that
Mr. Wicks.
Mr. Wicks. Yes, Mr. Wicks. And he bought everyone gorgeous clothes to work in the bank, and they loved that.
Well, I guess so.
I mean, they looked really good, and they were not used to dressing that way, and they just loved Jim for that.
Now, this is so opposite of him not wanting to put on airs, and yet he's giving these really expensive clothes to the people that work for his
to
bank.
young people.
To young people.
To young people, to sort of set a standard, or to help them to see how they might
Empower.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, really, that was what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Because Ernie Dumas wrote that Jim looked like he had his clothes thrown on him from a distance. So
They hung on him like sacks.
I know. I don't think you can say he was dressing himself that way, because he always dressed for comfort. He was like Winston Churchill. He didn't want anything touching his cuticle, as he called it.
His cuticle, is that your skin?
The skin, yes. Isn't that funny? That's one of the, the quoting things and the knowing poetry and the knowing literature, just lovely. I don't like anything touching my cuticle, as Winston Churchill would say. That's just lovely. I thought that was a wonderful way to live.
Yeah. So he buys everybody clothes. Then he buys them Mercedes, but the employees actually make the note payments.
Yeah, they pick their car and they decide what they're going to pay and all of that. Jim introduced them to the guy that owned the Mercedes place.
And he still owns the Bank of Kingston.
Yes.
And he's still doing real estate.
Yes.
And he's still...
Actually, the savings and loan was purchased to finance real estate purchases for people throughout the state of Arkansas, because it was hard at that time for some folks to get loans. Yeah, it was money was tight. It was hard, and he was going to have a real estate place for the people. It was going to be for the people to own property.
Yeah, it's kind of vertical integration in business. He's going to sell the money, then take you over to his bank, and then his bank's going to loan you the money, and he's going to improve people's lives and his life too, and everybody's. I mean, it's building a big community.
The making money from it was not the big priority, unfortunately. One of the things that the independent counsel never found was any money. I kept saying, where's the money if we are these people who've done all these things? But the profit was never it. It was always involving people and showing them how to make money, how to take a piece of land, how to carve it up, how to put water in or roads, and then to buy these. I mean, we sold lots to people who had never dreamed of having a 5-acre lot with a house on it.
Yeah.
And then we introduced them to builders who knew that we were going to finance the end product for them. And the builder would come and make that design that they wanted. I mean, it was people who never had that dream before.
And I get that from where Jim's coming from. I love the creative process of business. It's the building of something and the hooking it up. And, there's a lot of things you do in business that are labors of love, that are fun and that are creative, that are not necessarily the best business decision. I've had lots of bankers tell me, they go, that's not really a good idea to buy the Taborian Hall in downtown Little Rock, Kerry. That's a really bad idea. I'm like, well, it's a labor of love. I can't help it. I want to redo it.
Yes, absolutely. And it was the 70s and early 80s when
and it was
very idealistic.
We were very idealistic. And it's interesting that you said that about Madison Guarantee, because after all the combing through of everything by Whitewater, they never found anything but a misdemeanor for an appraisal that was a little too high that was done by a subcontractor.
Yeah, it was never anything. There was no there.
Kenneth Starr went on TV and said Madison Guarantee is the most corrupt institution in the country, and they never found one thing.
No. They asked me to come and testify to Congress about what had been found, and so I got to go sit and look at all the findings. There was literally nothing.
Which I don't think most people realize that. I just assumed it had so much negative publicity. I just assumed there was something there. There had to be a smoking gun. I mean, I never knew what it was, but I just assumed it was bad because of the bad press.
I think it was just the first of a long line of bad information out there, just like we have now, where people don't believe that the coronavirus is real. And they don't think, yes, it's just all of that information, you can drown people in it. And I do think that people believe there was something there. But that one sentence tells you why I went to jail rather than testify. Mm-hmm. Because I'm a person who knew there was nothing there.
What was your position at the bank?
Wife.
You didn't work at You didn't work at the bank at all?
No.
Oh.
No, I never had a position at the bank. I sold real estate, but I was not a banker, no.
Yeah, you just did things when Jim told you to do something. So your life with Jim was starting to unravel. You were starting to realize that he's got a problem. He's bipolar. You didn't know it was bipolar, I don't think, yet, did you?
He bought an island, sight unseen. That was the beginning of the crack for me. He bought Campobello Island.
Where is that?
It's in Canada, and it's formerly owned by, it had a house there where President Roosevelt had been bathing and was crippled.
Got polio from there?
Polio from there. Their house is still there in perfect shape with everything in it that was ever there. And we went to see that, and after we bought it, we went to see that. That was lovely, and the island was lovely. The Bay of Fundy is around that island.
I know what that is.
Is it developed?
Absolutely.
Is it developed now? Is it developed now?
I have no idea. The name itself is enough to make me have complete breakdown.
Why did you not like that if it was lovely and everything was beautiful?
The whole conversation's giving me a complete breakdown.
It's giving you a rash?
Yes. Yes. I'm inarticulate, to say the least. He saw that island for sale, and he looked at the price and at what it was, and he said, "We're buying it." And he sent one of the people from the bank up there, and they bought it and came home and said, "We have it. It's ours."
Whatever happened to it? He sell it or lose it? Or
Oh, I don't know. I really don't. We sold a lot of it. We had we developed some of it.
Oh. Mm-hmm. So you said that's the crack.
That was the beginning of what are we doing?
Wasn't Jim...
And I was
older. Were you and
older.
Jim living together?
I was older, you have to remember.
How old are you now?
I am probably, let's see, I got married in 76 and I left in 86. So I was 30-something.
Mm-hmm. You're starting to be a woman.
I'm starting to realize I might need to say something.
Yeah. I need a voice.
Yeah. I probably should be saying something right now. And it was scary.
So what's the first thing you did when you left? You moved out, told him, what'd he say?
I think he helped me out. He was manic, and he was having a good time.
Oh, he was on the top of it.
Yeah, life was really good for him.
You don't want to be with me. You're out of here.
No, it was like, go, have a good time, and, this is what you want, and I want what you want, and if someone falls out of love with you, there's just not much you can do about it.
Had he saying he'd fallen out of love with you?
No, he was saying I had.
Oh.
And he was saying there's just not much to be done. We don't want to argue or anything. So I think he helped me out with my luggage.
So you start dating?
And it was friendly. It was nice. Mm-hmm. And we talked every day, and it wasn't angry. It wasn't. Mm. And I worried about him because I knew that he was manic, and I knew that bad things were happening.
Loved him.
Yes, absolutely.
But you start dating Pat. This is when you start dating Pat. You've known Pat for a long time.
Well, we knew each other. He worked there, and we knew each other, and he was reasonable. And it was such a relief to talk to someone reasonable. And he loved Jim. He loved him, and so did I. And we talked about what was happening, and he was aware of it. Most people, when you try to talk to them about someone who is manic and the things that are going on, they look at you like you're crazy. But Pat knew what was going on. He was worried also. And so we built a friendship really around worrying about Jim.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You're such a nice person. I cannot believe all the stuff that's happening to you. Okay, let's just keep going.
You see, I told you, people don't believe it.
No, but everybody, when I told them that we were going to be visiting and I was going to be interviewing, they go, "Oh, she's just so nice. You're not going to believe how nice she is." I'm like, "Susan McDougal is so nice." And they're like, "Yes." And I'm like, "That girl that was on the news all the time portrayed as this evildoer."
Yeah.
All right.
They tortured her so bad.
No, right?
Yeah.
So you and Pat decide to move to California.
Yes.
You're going off. Jim's fine. You're leaving. Are you divorced yet?
No, we didn't divorce forever.
Okay. So the first job you get in California is with Occidental Petroleum. And you went to an employment agency to get the job, I think. And that
I wasn't wanting anything, really to do except file things. I can remember saying, I would like to put pieces of paper in file folders because I am so traumatized by all of what's going on.
10 years with Jim.
Yeah, I was traumatized by the divorce. I was traumatized by what was happening he was hiring a lot of people who were looking to make a big bunch of money. And we had never been like that. It was never our goal to make a lot of money. But people were coming into the business that were having dreams that were about making a lot of money. And it was scary to me. It was not what we had always been about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really traumatized when we left. And I told everybody, I said, if I can get a job just filing pieces of paper, I will be so happy. As I've been selling real estate, my last year, I made a lot of money selling real estate.
Yeah.
Commissions,
yes.
Not being paid for anything, but on commission. And I didn't want that anymore. I just wanted a peaceful life.
You fill out a resume with that employment agency that comes back to haunt you.
Not really.
I thought it did.
Well, it was supposed to. But
they tried to make it haunt you.
They tried to make it haunt me. But unfortunately for them, I told the truth. I said I needed a job. So I told them that I could do secretarial work. And they said, you put down here that you were a secretary. And I said, well, yeah, that's the job I wanted. I thought I'd better say I had some experience. And they said, what was your experience? I said, well, I'd sold real estate. I had helped build the bank. I had done marketing stuff. I had done a lot of things. I didn't want to do that anymore. I just wanted to work in a peaceful place. And the jury all looked at me like, what is so wrong about her saying that she was a secretary?
Let's tell the listeners that in the Whitewater trial, they tried to say Susan is this notorious liar. She lied on her resume, which is, who doesn't, first of all?
Who lies down?
Yeah, right?
I mean, it wasn't like I was saying, yeah, I can run AT&T. It was like, yeah, just please can I type and answer the phone because I'm traumatized. I need a quiet place. So when I held that up, I held it up like this in the jury room. And I said, yes, I absolutely lied on this. I have never been a secretary, but I thought I might be able to figure it out. And they loved it. They loved it. They talked to me about it later. That jury actually came and had dinner with me and came to Little Rock for the Little Rock trial. That jury followed me and for the rest of my life.
Wow.
And I held that piece of paper up, the fraudulent, horrible Susan McDougal who lied down. And they just thought it was unbelievable how they had made such a big deal out of it. But you have to if you have nothing.
Right. So your Pat, though, he gets a job with conductor Zubin. How do you say Zubin's last name?
Mehta.
Mm-hmm. So he's a famous conductor. Charming,
good-looking. Zuby Baby was his nickname in
Zuby
LA.
Baby. But he's also an absentee husband.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So his wife lives in California, and she's got all the money, and she's got all the prestige, and her husband is this big hot dog conductor.
Oh, she's fabulously beautiful, too. She is. In Jason and the Argonauts, she is the goddess in that movie. Cool. And she was in Bewitched. She was Darren's girlfriend who was so gorgeous, and Samantha was angry at her. And she was in Dean Martin films and all of those spy films. She was absolutely fabulously beautiful, tall, good looking,
Blonde, I guess.
smart, blonde, yes.
And so Pat's working for her, and he decides to go off to get his law degree and to leave California. And where does he go to start studying for law?
The University of Michigan.
So he goes to Michigan, and he's been her assistant for a year or so. And he says, "You want my job?"
She does real estate. She
she
owns and sells real estate.
Okay, and so he's gonna leave that position and ask you if you want it.
No.
Okay.
He leaves the position. She's met me because he works there, and she likes me. We strike up a friendship, and we do a lot of things together before Pat leaves. And when he leaves, she said, I have been dreaming of you coming to work for me. And she's on a mountain with the gorillas in the mist. I'm trying to talk like I remember it being said. Mm-hmm. She's on a mountain with gorillas in the mist. You know what I'm talking about? No. In the actuality of it, she is in Africa, where they see the gorillas. They write about the gorillas in the mist. Mm-hmm. And this came to me that you need to come and work with me. I mean, who can say no to that? But I should have, because all I wanted was a peaceful life, right? Mm-hmm. That did not work out well.
Describe a day with Nancy.
I once thought about writing a book about my experiences there. We had a butler there who was gay and also hilarious, and had lots of, this was a time when all gay men were having liaisons like hourly, and people were coming in and out of the Meta Mansion with the butler all the time, and he was hilarious. Then she had a dog that bit everyone. It was a Russian wolfhound, and the dog bit everyone that I ever saw the dog with. I mean, one lady in the face, but the dog only bit people. From my perspective, the dog knew who to bite because no one ever sued. No one ever did anything. It was just sort of like, oh my gosh, and so we were going to pack a van with the dog and the butler and me and Nancy and drive from California to New York City.
Whoa.
And I thought, I'm writing a book about this. This has got to be the greatest trip ever made. We didn't do it, but that's the kind of thing, though, that we did do. A day in the life was not, it was, she had a lot of rental property. Tom Hanks lived in one of the houses. Trying to think. Dina.
Sure.
Dina, her mother wrote books about etiquette. Post was her mother, Meriwether Post.
Oh, yeah.
Dina Merrill.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh, my gosh. And she had houses where people who were very famous lived in them. And we would go over and see if things needed to be done or talk to them about, what they needed, or would you like a larger fish pond, or, whatever it was. Whatever it was, we were ladies who went. Oh, I remember one day, who was in Love Story? Ally McGraw. I met Ally McGraw at the house, and I'm like, oh my gosh, all day. I'm like, I just love her. So I get over there, and it's raining, it's crazy, and we get at the front door, and she turns to me and she says, "Hi, I'm Ally." And I thought, that's it? That's the whole thing? People were so real. Do you know what I mean? It was funny to me. Being from Arkansas, I just wasn't expecting it. So she rented a house, and, it was funny. Everything that happened was funny.
Everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time.
Yes. But this gorgeous woman standing at the door thinks she has to introduce herself.
Yeah.
I mean, that's funny to me.
Yeah, I'm Allie. Yeah, we know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're all, even though she was crazy, you liked her. But you.
Oh, we were very close. Oh my gosh.
Y'all did everything together.
Well, that was not by my choice, but yes.
She wouldn't let you out of her sight.
No.
She made you sleep with her sometimes. I mean, not just
No.
Like bunking parties and...
No, we never slept.
I thought you had to spend the night there sometimes. Like
No, she came and I was in an apartment and she had the movers come and pick my things up and put them in her house. She had a huge home that was Steve McQueen's home when Steve McQueen was alive.
And
it was enormous, and she just put my things in the house.
Because her husband never came home. And she was
Pretty
lonely.
much.
And she was
Pretty
lonely.
much, yes.
So you started noticing she was a little quirky and clingy, and you decided, I need to get my life back, and you start talking about wanting to leave. She was not going to go for that.
No, that really, in fact, her attorney said to me, this is not going to end well. She gets what she wants, and this is not going to go well.
But so how many years did you end up working for her?
But I was an adult, and I figured I could go.
Right.
You know?
How many years did you work for her?
Oh, not that many. I don't know, 5 maybe.
Oh, that's a pretty long time.
You always disagree with me. Yes, I guess so. I'm going with it. Yeah, that's a long time.
That is kind of long. I thought you were going to say 2 or 3 years.
She was lovely. She was pretty. She was funny. She liked going and, everyone eating lots of food. I mean, when she took people out to eat, including me, she ordered. And the table was enormously full. I mean, like, bring us 2 of those. We would like 1 of those. Bring that. Let us see the desserts. Bring all of those desserts. There were 2 people at the table, and we would just be like, unbelievable.
That's hard to leave. That's hard to leave. Even if she is quirky and clingy, that's hard to leave.
I didn't think there was anything wrong with her. I enjoyed her quirkiness, and she enjoyed my quirkiness. Mm-hmm. We got along well. Mm-hmm. In fact, at the trial, when I was charged with stealing money from her, she walked in the back door of the courthouse, of the courtroom, and she didn't know where to go. She was supposed to go to the witness stand, and she stood there for a minute, and she was going, like, where do I go? And very hesitant. And I turned to my attorney, Mark Garrigus, and I said, please go help her. Please help her get where she needs to go. I mean, I knew her well enough to know that she was in trouble. She didn't know what she was supposed to do.
You're such a nice person. All right, you do leave, and you go to meet Pat. Where do you meet him?
I was in Michigan, and I was working at the university, and that was lovely. Loved being there. And my mom called and said, somebody from the independent counsel's office wants to talk with you. And I had been reading in the newspaper that they were investigating President Clinton. And I knew that I didn't want any part of that, so I never called them back.
So did you get the Whitewater so you got the call from your mother about Whitewater. Had you heard about the Meta trial yet?
Not at all.
Whitewater was first, and then the Meta trial came second.
Because they were hooked together.
Yeah, which we later found out that they were all...
Whitewater had to have happened first for the Meta thing to have happened.
Right. All right, this is a great place to take a break. But we're going to solve that riddle when we come back.
I'm worn out.
No!
Oh, we're just getting started.
No, we hadn't even gotten to the trial yet.
Oh, my God. How long does this go on?
The rest of your life.
I think so.
This is your life.
I'm going to ask more questions the next time somebody asks me to do this. Is this my whole life we're going to go over?
Well, only the first 6 years, basically. No, we've gone over from birth.
Birth to death, I'm afraid.
No, we're not going to go that far.
I was going to an interview in the limousine. Somebody had sent a limousine for me to go to, and I was thinking, I'm so over this. Mm-hmm. This is going to be so easy. They're going to ask me a few questions, and I'm going to answer them, and I'm going to be so cool. And this is so long ago. And I got there, and Jerry Falwell was the other side. He was telling his side.
The Christian right.
I went completely crazy on that show. And I thought, the next time you need to ask some questions about who's going to be on there, because he was talking about how terrible Clinton was and it was, how terrible I was, how terrible. And I lost my mind. So it never goes away. That's what I'm trying to say to you. That trauma of defending yourself and knowing that you're innocent never stops. It happens to me today. If someone says you did that and I know I didn't, I get to where I want to, just lose my mind, because that fear of being found guilty of something you didn't do is so traumatizing. It really is. Rather go to jail myself, put my own self in there, than be told I'm guilty and I'm going to jail. And that's really the truth of what happened.
We'll be back. We're going to continue our conversation with Miss Susan McDougal, the woman that wouldn't talk during the 1994 Whitewater trial. Still to come, the David and Goliath story between the small Little Rock, Arkansas savings and loan bank called Madison Guarantee and the OIC, Office of Independent Counsel, led by Kenneth Starr. Susan's indictments, trials, and sentencings, why she decided to talk no more, and her journey through 7 jails and 2 years, a torturous tactic by the prosecution known as diesel therapy.
Today at flagandbanner.com, we're installing large mesh banners on our new addition. Mesh banners provide protection from the wind and rain, but are more durable in high wind areas. Before you drill into your building, call the experts for high-quality banners and professional installation.
Look at all that gray hair. He's definitely an expert. Flagandbanner.com has been helping our customers for over 45 years. For advice on functional and beautiful banners, call flagandbanner.com.
All right, you're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Miss Susan McDougal, defendant of the 1994 Whitewater investigation and notably known as the woman that wouldn't talk. In the beginning of the show, we talked about you being from Camden. We talked about you marrying Jim. We talked about you buying the Bank of Kensington. We talked about you Jim starting the Bank of Madison Guarantee in Little Rock. Then we talked about you moving to California, which you need to know because it's going to come up later in the show. And then you are now in Michigan with Pat. He is your new beau, and he is soon to be graduating as a lawyer. Who knew you were going to need a lawyer so bad? But you are going to need a lawyer pretty bad. And your mother has called you and said, the Whitewater investigation is going on. And you said, yeah, I saw that on TV. And they called you. And you were like, well, I'm not going to call them back.
No, it was really a blip in the New York Times. It was a very small story, like on the page 10, that said an investigation has been started on President Clinton and a small real estate company in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I saw that and thought, well, that's not good. And then Mother said they were calling me, and I thought, I don't really have much to say. Nothing happened that I know.
So in the beginning, the OIC was investigating Jim and his savings and loan company, or were they investigating Whitewater? How did Madison Guarantee end up in the Whitewater investigation?
Bill Clinton and Hillary bought a piece of land with a house on it from the Whitewater Development Corporation as an investment vacation home thing.
How did you first end up meeting with the OIC about Madison Guarantee? Tell us about that first meeting.
I was asked to come down, and I think I looked through attorneys in Arkansas through a book, and Bobby McDaniel was listed as one of the best trial lawyers in Arkansas. And I called him and I said, they've asked me to come and talk with them, and I wondered if you'd go with me. And he said he would.
So you were already like, this is scary.
No, not really. I was going to go by myself. And I think someone intervened and said, you probably should have somebody.
Probably your boyfriend, Pat, who's a lawyer.
Maybe. But he wasn't really on top of all that fearfulness either. Yeah, neither one of us really thought it would be anything because we'd both been there. And when you know that there's no there, you're not really afraid of it,
Mm-hmm. So you meet in Arkansas, you come from Michigan, you go down, were you living in Michigan at the time?
I came down to Little Rock, and Bobby, whom I never met me at the, somewhere here in Little Rock, one of the office buildings. And I called Pat and I said, he has on cowboy boots with his suit. And he said, you've got to get over it. You're in Arkansas. I said, okay, I'm over it. Okay, fine. And so I went in, and I will never forget how personable he was and how kind he was to me. I didn't think we were going to get along that well, and we really did. I was about to go in the door of the building, of the room where they were all waiting on us. And he stopped me and said, just remember, truth rings like a bell. People know it when they hear it. Never forget that. And so we went in to talk with them, had no idea what we were going into, and there were a lot of them in there. There were probably, I'm going to say, 7 to 10 people on one side of the table, like on the side of that table. FBI agents, OIC people, lawyers, all from Washington. Washington lawyers.
What were the questions?
FBI.
What were the questions they were
Well, they
asking?
didn't ask me any questions. I thought they were going to. I was excited to be able to tell them, I was there and I didn't say anything and all that. There was a stack of papers in the middle of the table, large stacks of papers, and I sat down, and first thing he said was, let's not all be on this side of the table. Why don't, some of us go over there and be with her, and then some of us come. I said, that's okay. That's all right. I'm fine. And so then I said, I'd like to talk with you all. And Bobby said, Susan would like to tell you that she never saw anything illegal or, unethical even that the Clintons did. So we just want to start there. And he took the papers and he pushed them aside with his hand. And he said, I'd really not like to have to go through those. We would like to make you an offer. And the offer is universal immunity. And we do our jobs well. We've done this a lot. This is something that we've talked about. We'd like to offer you that in exchange for your testimony. And I said something like, well, I don't know anything that I could offer you in testimony. I never saw anything that was wrong or illegal or anything. And he said, we believe we can convict you of multiple felonies. And he had his hand on top of the papers. And he said, we believe we have the evidence. And I said, well, I'd like to see that. And he said, no, that's not necessary today. We're here to talk about this offer that we're making you. And I said, well, that's just not going to happen. That's just not going to happen because I don't know anything that anyone has done illegally. And I remember thinking, I'm getting like global immunity is what they called it. And I was thinking like Gaddafi? I mean, really, it made me feel like I needed global immunity. And for me, it meant like the world, like global, not just global as in all immunity, but I was thinking some major crime person. I was so naive. I just can't tell you. And I told them I was not going to be doing that. It was not the way I thought things worked. And I would like to just answer what they thought I'd done wrong. And they didn't say anything. And I said, well, we're leaving. So we got up to leave. And they must have leaked that I was going to be there because we didn't. And there were a ton of television cameras out there to film me leaving, being questioned by the Office of Independent Counsel. And I wish every person accused of something could see my face. I mean, it is so naive. I say something like, this is really wrong. Things like this don't happen in America. I believe in the justice system, and I'm sure that everything will work out just fine. And I have these big eyes and this little innocent face, and it's so embarrassing to look back on it, knowing what was coming. And probably everyone knew what was coming who was involved but me. And I just really thought at the time, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of, that you're going to tell me that I have felonies that you're going to prove and send me to prison. And I know it's not true. It's just not true. And so I never believed any of it. And I never spoke to them again.
You didn't?
No.
What was the next thing that happened?
I told them I wasn't going to speak with them again. No.
So you go back to Michigan?
Listen, my father was on Omaha Beach on D-Day for our country. My family believed in that. There's no way I was going to accept that they were going to tell me I had broken the law and put me in jail and make me testify against somebody when I knew it was not true. And so I really thought when I walked out that day that was it. It was over. I had told them.
Yeah.
And there was no proof anywhere that I had done anything wrong, which later proves to be true.
6 years later.
Yes.
So you go back to Michigan after that, and just everything's going to be fine. Tell Pat there's nothing. Everything's going to be fine. When's the next ball drop?
When I was indicted.
How long?
I was at work, and somebody, a reporter for ABC News called me and said, "There's a indictment, a 20-page indictment with your name on it. Would you like to make a comment?" And I said, "You want to tell me more about that? Would you like to tell me a little bit more about that?" And they said, "Well, we're outside. We can meet you and talk with you." And I said, "No, that won't be necessary, but thank you for calling."
You didn't even know.
I had no idea. No idea at all.
Did you call your lawyer in Little Rock, or did you call the lawyer Pat, or?
I don't remember. I think I worked the rest of the day and probably went home and said, they say there's an indictment out there. And, and somehow I called Bobby and he said, let me find out, because he didn't know either. ABC News knew before we knew.
They're really good at leaking this stuff to the press, aren't they?
I mean, I think people know now, but they didn't know then how manipulated the press could be. People understand it now because we see the press being manipulated by all kinds of people. But back then, that just wasn't the case. This really was the first case where somebody actively tried to present a truth that was a lie, and was a government official being paid and spending billions of dollars. And it was all a lie from the beginning.
To judge you in the public eye. It's the beginning of...
to make sure Bill Clinton was not president anymore. It had nothing to do with me. I was roadkill. I was just whoever they hit and knocked over and tried to kill on the way to making sure that Bill Clinton would not be reelected.
They said they offer you a proffer, which is the first time I've ever heard that word. It was proffer. It's an offer. I don't know why it's not just called offer.
I don't either.
But
yeah, they proffer something and you tell them what you know. And you say something like, Bill Clinton came in the dark of the night and took $1 million out of the safe. I mean, I don't know what they thought I was going to say. You tell me.
Yeah.
What could I possibly know that Bill Clinton had done that was wrong?
And you haven't even seen him in...
Forever. And I
really,
probably hadn't seen him in 10 years at that time or spoken with him.
Or even very close to him. I mean, you weren't particularly close to him or Hillary.
He was friends with Jim. They were all older than I was. And I was interested in politics, but I wouldn't say we hung out. Went to dinner a few times. I hadn't spoken to him in forever. And I don't know what story they wanted. Actually, I do know toward the end what they wanted me to say. And that wasn't true either, and I refused to say it, and that's when they put me in jail.
All right.
But that was later.
Okay. So how you were actually go to trial. You've been indicted 8 times. You had 8 indictments.
8 indictments. I had 8 charges.
Yeah.
In the indictment.
Yes. And Jim had 18.
Yes.
And the OIC's attorney were Amy St. Eve and Jackie Bennett, and boy, do I dislike them now.
Amy St. Eve is a lifetime federal appointed judge.
She was the lawyer for the OIC at the time, right?
That they all were looking for bigger lives.
Yeah, it was all career driven.
Yes.
So how did you pick? Did you keep Bobby as your attorney when it came time to go to trial?
Oh yeah, we were so on the same page. He knew that it was all made up. I mean, he could look at my face and see that none of that is true.
So how long before you went to trial? ABC calls you, tells you you've been indicted. Now how long before you go to trial?
Gosh, I don't remember, but a long time, because by the time I went to trial, and I didn't go to jail for going to trial, I went to jail for refusing to testify. By that point, I was so happy to go to jail because I was being followed and filmed and yelled at everywhere I went. I couldn't do anything. My parents had cameras out in the front yard, and they were elderly. It was horrifying. And I was so glad to be where no one could come and get me. It was a relief, the first jail I went to. And I thought, this is what it feels like to just be safe.
Interesting. So how long did the trial last once it started?
Too long. Jim Guy Tucker was a part of it, and I barely knew them. And to be in a trial with someone that I had such respect for and loved so much, they were just such kind people and always doing good. And to see them hurting, well, they had children, and their children were in the courtroom, and it's horrible. When Jim Guy was convicted, his children were weeping and crying in the courtroom, and he had done nothing. It was horrifying. Well, it was harder on me, I think, than my own, because I didn't have any children.
He was on the show, and he said that he was waiting on a liver transplant from the Mayo Clinic, and that he was advised not to go to trial and to just go ahead and plead guilty and to save his life. And so he couldn't go to trial, he said, and defend himself.
Well, actually, he didn't testify. And they may have told him, don't testify.
I think that's what it was. Yeah, he didn't testify. He was told not to testify because of his health.
They said he couldn't. He said he wouldn't be able to go through it. And, he ended up getting reimbursement from the Supreme Court because they never could find anything wrong.
That's very cool.
It's like a check for $1 and some odd cents. So he has it framed on his wall now.
Oh, that's great. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. He had some strength left when that was over. I didn't. Everyone wanted me to sue somebody, and I just kept saying, please, let me out of here.
Yeah. So let's talk about the trial. You go to trial, and what's kind of the first thing that happens? Character assassination, David Hale. Who was David Hale, and what part did he play in the investigation?
David Hale testified that Bill Clinton told him he needed some money. And the only way David Hale could help him with that was to make up some loans. He had a loan company, a federally backed loan company. The federal government would give him money to loan out at good interest rates for small businesses. It was an SBA loan office.
Okay.
So if you had a small business, you could go in and get a very low rate loan to start this business. And David Hale was producing these loans, but only for members of his own family and for his friends. And his idea to save himself was, yes, I did that, and I also did it for Susan McDougal. I made a loan for her at a very small interest rate, and that was supposed to go to Bill Clinton. That was the deal. Everybody knew it. Susan knew it. Bill Clinton knew it. I knew it.
And it was all a lie.
It was,
and it was all a proffer he made to save his own skin.
That's exactly right. They had found out that he was making all of these loans, and they were lies. He was even making up names on the loans. The people didn't exist, and he was taking the money himself.
He was going down big time.
He
actually was the only person in the whole trial who was actually a crook, and he proffered and threw everybody else under the bus with lies.
He found Justice Jim Johnson. Do you remember him? Told him the story, and they concocted the whole thing. You were making loans? Well, hey, you were making loans, and Bill Clinton got the money. Bill Clinton raised more money than any single political candidate in the history of the world.
Really?
But he needed me to go make a loan with David Hale, a man I had never met in my entire life, and for $300,000, and take him that money. That's what he needed to break the law and get me to break the law, and we all knew it. But he had more money raised than anyone ever in the history of the presidency. He was known to be a fundraiser.
Yeah, that's what he's known for.
Yeah, that was the story. That was the story that I was supposed to say was true.
And you said, no, I'm not going to do it.
Well, I didn't know that for a long time. I mean, that took a while. It took David Hale getting indicted. It took David Hale giving him the story, saying, here it is. And the U.S. attorney at the time, this lovely woman, I didn't know her, but she was awfully lovely to me, went on television and said, this is a crock of nothing. It's a lie. I don't believe him. They took that on to a federal judge who said, yes, I believe this, and I believe we will start an investigation.
So the first judge said no.
The U.S. attorney who would have brought the charges said David Hale's a crook.
Yeah.
He needs to be indicted. He needs to go to prison. He's done a lot of bad things. I see nothing else.
Yeah. And that wasn't enough for the people that wanted Bill Clinton not to get reelected.
But it happened over and over. They hired a guy, I wish I could remember his name. He was another lovely person that they hired and put in place as a federal prosecutor. He looked at all the evidence and he said, there is no there. There's nothing in Whitewater. I find absolutely nothing wrong. They fired him and took it to this Republican federal judge who reinstated the charges.
You talking about Susan Weber, right?
No. A judge that was on the Court of Appeals. The name escapes me, but he was funded by, his candidacy was funded by a lot of really extreme right-wing politics who hated Bill Clinton. They took that indictment to him, and he said, yes, there's something here. We need an investigation.
He proffered.
Yes.
He said, yeah, I'll do it. You'll get me a better job later. So
well, he didn't need a better job. He was bankrolled by a lot of right-wing. You know, when Hillary Clinton said something like vast right-wing conspiracy, that is what I think of, because this guy this federal judge, I wish I could remember his name, he was their man in the federal judiciary.
So everybody's saying there's nothing there. You're going to get off. You're feeling pretty good about it. And then your ex-husband gets up there on the witness stand and he throws you under the bus.
Yeah, you're talking during the trial now. Mm-hmm. Because this was a run-up to the trial where they're trying to decide, are they guilty? Have they done something wrong? And they kept hiring people who said no. And finally, they hired Kenneth Starr, who said, I think there's something here, and we need to pursue this. And he saw, I remember somebody in the airport, and he said, becoming the independent counsel on this Whitewater thing, your guy's going down. He said about Bill Clinton, and they testified to that. He was, I think, bought and sold. He also wanted to be a United States Supreme Court justice. He had his sights on bigger things as well.
And it goes to trial. Everybody thinks you're going to get off.
You know, I was advised not to testify because there was no evidence there. You know, my attorneys, we all met together and said, there's really no evidence of anything we've done wrong. I mean, if you put hot pokers in my eyes right now, I could not tell you one thing that I heard at trial that said, hey, Susan McDougal broke the law. They showed a lot of my checks that I'd written and said that I was extravagant. They showed some charges from Saks Fifth Avenue and.
Oh, is this on the meta trial?
No, this is
your own personal.
Whitewater.
Okay, but didn't they bring some meta trial? Didn't they bring in some information? Was it this? You had several trials. Was this the trial where they said, "Oh yeah, she's been charged with credit card fraud in California"?
No, they put that on the front page of the Democrat Gazette like it was real, and they had engineered that. They totally engineered that.
So the meta trial, did it happen during the first trial of Whitewater, or was that the second trial? So it was the Whitewater trial, then the meta trial, then the second Whitewater trial, because you had two Whitewater trials. It's a convoluted 4 years you're in.
Because when you don't roll over, it gets pretty dirty.
So this first trial,
if you decide that you're not going to play the game that people play all the time in the justice system, every woman I ever met in jail played the game. That we'll give you, probation if you'll plead guilty to this. And say that this guy did it instead. Everybody takes that deal. And that's what my attorney told me. He said, everybody takes this deal. Global immunity.
Think of something to say, Susan.
Yeah.
So why did you decide no? So this is not the trial that you decide not to talk in.
No, this is the trial
I thought it was when you went back for sentencing that you decided not to talk.
Oh, there's so many times I decided not to talk.
Yeah.
Mark Garrigus used to introduce me and say, "This is Susan McDougal, who wrote The Woman Who Wouldn't Talk, but if you knew her, you wouldn't believe that." But she never did.
Okay,
she never did.
So, so after he has drug everybody through the mud, they finally find a judge who'll take it. They finally find Kenneth Starr who'll take it, who all have Republican ambitions to go higher up. They come down to Arkansas.
We don't know this at the time. We were just seriously wondering. And it's really the first time this is happening. You realize now we have seen a whole lot of this misinformation in the public arena, and a lot of people willing to say anything. But at that time, I did not think that these were bad people or that they were out to get me. I just thought somebody has gotten this wrong. They don't realize that they didn't do anything wrong. I am not in the least thinking this is a conspiracy. I believe Oswald shot Kennedy. I never thought of it that way. You have to remember how innocent we all were back in those days before these huge conspiracy things had ever started.
This is the beginning of the 24-hour news cycle and the sort of public spectacle of,
being able to sell misinformation to people rapidly and convincingly.
It's the birth of the internet.
Yeah, that was happening too.
Yeah, the internet was 1995. Your trial is...
I thank God every day there was no CNN.
Oh, man.
Every day. When I see these people being dragged through all of these reporters, and I think that could have been me, instead of that, I just was haunted and hounded by people with parabolic dishes on top of vans.
You go... Those are satellite dishes, everybody.
Whatever it is, it was not nice.
So you go through this trial, you get to the end, you think you're going to walk free. They've ruined Chris.
No, I don't. I get to the trial. I don't testify because there's nothing at all that they say I've done that's illegal. And then I'm found guilty.
Yeah, so you think you're going to be okay. And then, and then Jim McDougal gets on the stand.
Yes.
And the guy you have, tied your apron strings to, that you think is a good guy that you have been taking care of for years, he gets up there and he's having one of he's decided to proffer because they've found something on him.
No. Jim decides he's going to testify because he is really, he is a good conversationalist. People like him. Unfortunately, it did not work that day. He really looked horrible. He looked like he was lying. It was just bad. It was so bad that I wept after his testimony. I just left the courtroom, found some stairs, and wept. It was the saddest thing to see him having been reduced to that, which is really what you would call it. The battering, the spending all of our money, being penniless. Everything we'd ever worked for was gone. The person that I had most trusted in my life that was brilliant and had always been a great Democrat, had always cared about people, is reduced to a liar, looking like the worst person in the world. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart to see him in that place.
It still breaks your heart.
It's terrible. It's what they did to him shouldn't have been done to anybody. It was terrible. The fear, the constant badgering, the following him around, all of that. And he thought, if I just get up here and tell the truth, it will be done. And it wasn't. It just wasn't.
They ruined Webb Hubbell's life.
Oh, gosh, that was a travesty.
His wife, his accountant, appraisers in Arkansas were hounded that were in. This
lady stopped me at the airport. She was probably 70, weeping and saying, I lost everything I had defending myself in Whitewater. I did not even ask her, what were they saying you did? I just let her cry on my shoulder. I put my arms around her.
Chris Wade in Flippin, Arkansas, bankrupted him. He'd already been, Charles Matthews, somebody I know, he was... I guess the list is, and he said tons of appraisers lost their license and they were all just defending themselves and against the biggest prosecution in the country.
I would say the most money spent ever by a federal prosecutor.
What sticks out in your mind most about that time in trial?
I was sitting next to Jim Guy's lawyer. I wish I could remember his name, but he sat next to me. And he taught at a law school in Chicago, and he was brilliant. And every time they would say something, he'd lean over and whisper in my ear about how this was not good law or this was never going to, it's just lovely. And I learned a lot from him in staying calm and believing that this was going to be okay. And he believed it too. He was older. And I think he saved my life through that, just telling me, and he would stand up and say, Your Honor, this isn't good law. This isn't even true in the law. So they're arguing something. And he would just argue and argue and argue. And I really loved him for that.
Afterwards, you await sentencing. You're found guilty on 4 counts. You can't believe it. You're like, what? So you go to Claudia Riley's house in Arkadelphia, Arkansas, and Jim is also there waiting for sentencing. And when we come back, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we need to talk about how long I'm going to be here. This is the longest history of my life I've ever been through.
It's perfect.
Mom is living for it. She is.
Love this story so much.
Help me. Someone come rescue me from my life here.
You're doing
From
a
me?
great job.
You're rescuing me from me? No. All right. When we come back, sentencing in shackles. We're speaking with Susan McDougal, the woman that wouldn't talk. I'm going to say that again. When we come back, sentencing and shackles. We're speaking with Miss Susan McDougal.
Who?
When we come back.
That's how I feel. Think about that.
When we come back.
Now, who is this person exactly, and what year was that? I'm Susan McDougal. That's what I want to say.
Yeah.
When we come back, sentencing and shackles. We're speaking with Miss Susan McDougal, the woman that wouldn't talk during the 1994 Whitewater trial. Still to come, Susan's interview with Diane Sawyer and Larry King, her sentencing and jail time, and what she chose and why she chose contempt of court over talking. We'll be right back.
Our grandfather served his country during World War II. We use grave markers and stick flags to honor his memory. To those who serve, thank you from all of us at flagandbanner.com.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Miss Susan McDougal, defendant of the 1994 Whitewater trial and target of Kenneth Starr and Judge Susan Weber Wright's investigation. All right.
I went to the Capitol Hotel during the sentencing span, and my niece came up and ordered. We didn't even know what to order. She said, what do we order? I said, I don't know. I don't drink. She said, let's have whiskey sours. I saw that in a movie. I said, okay, that sounds good to me. So I'm sipping it, and it's horrific. It's whiskey sour. Who drinks that? Mm-hmm. And at my sentencing, they brought up that they were watching me and that I was drinking. And I had put, you have to fill out this thing. Don't drink, don't smoke, don't, to mess around. That I was a liar. They had seen me drinking.
Ugh, so petty.
So needing something.
Oh, I know, yeah.
So desperately needing something. Gosh. And they said, she drinks. And I said,
I still can't get over how that you said that you were accused of being extravagant. Like, that is just so insane.
Oh, yeah, I was just terribly extravagant.
Yeah.
She lied on her resume. She drank a whiskey sour, and she bought nice clothes.
She's extravagant. How dare she?
All right.
Yeah, this is the kind of person that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She buys clothes that are $400. She bought a dress that was $400. I don't even remember that. I think that's a lie too. But
well, probably Nancy brought it.
Probably. Or Claudia. Claudia was very extravagant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love her.
So we have just been through the trial. We are now.
Is that the break?
That was the break. We have been through the trial. We are now going to sentencing. And you're going to Claudia Riley's house in Arkadelphia, Arkansas to wait. I think there's a few months in there before they sentence you. And
yes.
Jim goes down and stays in her house that's lower than where you are. It's kind of at the foot of the hill. So you're with Claudia.
The guest house.
The guest
as
house.
Claudia would say.
The guest house.
The trailer, as I would say. But Claudia called it the guest house.
The trailer.
The trailer.
And while you're there, Kenneth Starr gang starts visiting him.
Yeah, they're trying to they're trying to make it palatable for him to plead guilty and to testify against Clinton. And they're bringing candy and, it looked like the three wise men. They were like bearing gifts going in there.
But now he's already been found guilty from the trial, though. So we're awaiting sentencing.
Yes. However, you can accept guilty, which was fine. But if you don't want to accept guilty and go to prison, you're going to have to give them something. You're going to have to tell the story for them, and then they give you probation.
Oh. So he's still...
You're so naive.
Me? Yeah. No.
Yeah, you're convicted, so you're facing a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to ask for the maximum. They're going to come after you. If you don't deal with them and make the deal, they're going to ask for the maximum sentencing. So they're telling him, you're going to go to jail for a very long time. You're going to die in jail over this.
Because he's always had kind of bad health.
Bad health. But he would have, it was a lot of years, all those counts and everything. And so he got very scared. And they were also being really nice. There was a phone call that happened. He was talking to me about cooperating with the independent counsel. And I understood it because he was sick and I didn't want him to go to prison. And and I cared about him. And I said, I get it. I understand what you're doing. And so I was at the guest house with him and he said, listen to this. And he called them. And he said, I'm going to need a driver to go around. I'm not well enough to drive. I don't have my car anymore. And he looked at me and did a thumbs up. They had agreed to a car and driver. And he said, and I'll need money because I've spent everything I have defending myself. And he gave me a thumbs up. Money was included. And I will need a hospital prison because I'm ill. Not just a regular prison, but a place that has good care for people, a federal prison. And he looked at me and he gave me a thumbs up. They had agreed. That's going to happen if I go to prison. And then he got this really funny look on his face. And when he hung up the phone, he said, you're not going to believe this. And I said, what? He said, Kenneth Starr is going to come to my sentencing and he is going to stand there. He's going to stand up for me. And he's going to say that, like Saul on the road to Damascus, that you have had this blinding light from God and you're going to tell the truth now. And that is why you've agreed to cooperate with the independent counsel, that you have had a conversion from God. God has spoken to you. And you had been blinded, but now you can see. And he's going to speak for me.
That's tempting. They offered it to you too, didn't they?
I don't know what's tempting about that.
It keeps
I'm
you from...
still here. Inside me is the girl that says, what? And actually, that was when I decided that I was never going to cooperate, because that is taking a man's soul.
I was going to say, you have a better moral compass, I feel like.
It took his soul from him. I kept thinking, well, we're through this. We'll laugh. We'll get together and we'll say, we got through it. It was hard. There's no coming back from that. There's no coming back from saying, yeah, I'm going to tell you that Bill Clinton stole a bunch of money to run for president and I helped him do it. And Susan was in on it too, probably. There's no telling what he had to agree to. You don't know what he's agreed to. You just know he's going to lie and he's going to try to get himself out of trouble. And that was not the man I knew, ever. That was not him. They have broken him. They have reduced him. They have scared him, and he is sick. And I hate them in that moment. When I see what they have done to him, I hate them. And I tell myself that this is not going to be you ever. Ever. Whatever happens.
So you've made up your mind. You decide you're gonna, before the sentencing, you have people hounding you outside of your media all the time. They're just out there all the time, and you've decided that one of the guys that's in the media keeps coming up and has befriended you, and you kind of trust him. And he asks you to go on the Diane Sawyer show. And you think, okay, I'll do this for this guy because you kind of trusted him. And you haven't talked to the media really at all, have you?
I've never talked to the media. Our decision was that there was no crime, and that we should just let that play out and not, not appear to be too worried about it or upset about it, that this was going to turn out well. And when it didn't, it was bad. But this guy was not a friend, and he was not someone I trusted. I did not speak with him. I sat down one day in my infinite wisdom and said to myself, I would like to speak to a nice Southern girl who could get me, who could understand what I'm trying to say to her. And I thought, Diane Sawyer looks like a nice person. Well, I'll call her. And I called, and she took my phone call.
Of course she did.
Sure.
And I decided that my brother went up with me, and my brother is like, he's like Samson. He is so strong and so well-spoken, so handsome, that they all want to talk to him. That he comes with me. We go up there. And the guy shows up, this reporter that you're talking about, Chris, whatever. And he becomes part of the production team on this interview, which does not go well at all. And she is not listening to me, and I'm not getting to say what I want to say. And in fact, when it airs, it's all cut up to pieces, and I look like I've taken money from babies. It's just horrible. Horrible, horrible. And this guy is totally responsible for that. And he is just a very bad person, bad moral compass, and he does whatever he can do to get his next position, too. He's just trying to make his way up the communication ladder. It did not help him at all, though. This interview didn't help him in the end.
Well, he had agreed to, there were some, you were like, I'm not going to talk about this, and I'm not going to talk about some certain topics, and Diane Sawyer came right out and started asking you the questions that you had told this reporter that you didn't, this gentleman that you had told him, I don't want to talk about those. And every time she'd ask you that question, you'd look over at him, and it would make you look guilty.
No, I looked at my brother. My brother was standing there, who I looked at because we had set the rules before we got there, because I was still waiting to be sentenced.
Right.
I had to be careful.
And a lot of people didn't think you should do it.
A lot of people thought I shouldn't do it, but I don't know what was happening for me. But Bill was very good. He stepped out in front of the cameras. That's my brother. And pretty much just told them how it was going to go. And they stopped the cameras. But he was on camera, and I was on camera saying, I can't talk about that. So it did look bad. So I fixed that pretty quickly, though. Larry King called me, and he said, I saw that interview, and that is a crock. That's the worst interview I have ever seen. It is a total lie. You need to come on my show. I will not interrupt you. It's live, and you don't have to worry about being cut and being made to look guilty. Just come tell the truth to the people. And it wasn't 2 days later that he flew me out there, and I was at that desk on Larry King Live. And
wow.
People started calling. I started just telling the story like I'm telling you all today. And people started calling in. And it was, he said he'd never had a show where people were so calling in angry, upset, and all of that. And one of the OIC called and said, listen, she just needs to talk to us. We can make this better. We can, they're wanting to talk. And so Pat and my brother started talking to this lady with the OIC. And when they came back and told me, I said, you two have lost your minds. No.
What'd she want you to do?
She was going to make a deal. I was going to, get probation, not have to go to jail. I was going to be vindicated, whatever the promises were. You know what happened to Jim McDougal and his promises, don't you? He's dead.
Yes.
Yes, he died in jail. That's how they kept their promise to him.
Yeah.
So, no. But I didn't know that at the time. But I'm getting a little wiser and a little bit angrier than I was before. And I said no. And they both were so upset with me, my brother and Pat. Pat cried and said, I'm begging you to take this offer from this lady. She wants to help you. She likes you. She saw you on Larry King Live. She really wants to. No.
She wanted you to give some dirt on Clinton, though, right?
Yes,
Lie
it would
about
have been
finding
something. It would have been something.
Selling your soul, as you said.
I said no, and my brother said, so what's your plan? He's very action-oriented. I said, my plan is to do whatever I have to do, take it, not complain about it, get through this, and live my life, and know that I've done the right thing. And that's pretty much all my plan is.
Because you've lost everything by now.
Oh, I've lost everything. Everything.
And everybody you know has lost everything.
The world is in tatters.
Arkansas.
They have even
the Arkansas world is in tatters.
My world is in tatters. I can say the world because it was mine. Yes, they've threatened to indict both my brothers who had done nothing wrong if I didn't take this offer from this lady.
They're going through everybody's lives
just like
with
they
a
did
fine-tooth comb.
Monica Lewinsky will indict your mother, you know.
Is that what they told her?
Yes. Yes, we will indict your family.
So when did you decide?
If they mentioned my mother, I might have given in. I don't know. That's tough. That's a tough one. Sorry, Mom, you got to go down. I probably wouldn't lie for anybody else, but I don't know. Thank God they didn't bring my mother up.
When did you decide not to talk and to do civil contempt?
I decided when I was in that guest house with Jim that I wasn't going to do it, but I hadn't told anybody. But I told Bill and Pat after the Larry King Live show, I told them I was not going to do it. And they were both just destroyed by that. They thought they could fix it.
Civil contempt means no bail, no trial, no appeals. So they just put you in jail for however long the judge decides, which could be 1 month to 18 months. You're just at the mercy of the judge.
Well, it's actually for the rest of your life if they want to, but they have to review it every 18 months. I got reviewed a few times. I was in jail for 2.5 years on civil contempt because every 18 months they bring me to court and say, "Are you ready to testify?" And I would say no, and they said, "Well, back to jail you go."
Does the sentencing take place in Arkansas?
Yes.
Tell us about that. What happened? This is when you quit talking, isn't it?
I had never testified. I had never spoken to the OIC. I had never spoken to anyone.
So which trial is it where they keep asking you questions and you say
Oh, that's the second trial. Yeah, I've gotten pretty upset by that time because I had been in jail for 2.5 years, and they put me back into they charged me again with civil contempt. They charged me with not testifying, which is hardly ever done.
So when you go in to get sentencing for the first trial, what?
We're going to be here forever.
I know.
I know. Mom's hashing out all the details.
She really is.
I don't understand. When you went in for the first...
I didn't know I had PTSD until this moment. I'm going to need counseling.
So describe being taken out after the sentencing.
Oh, yes. Actually, I wasn't taken out. I walked out. And you have to report back. They give you a date to come back after you're sentenced to go to jail.
Yeah.
You get to go home. I was out on bond or bail or on my own recognizance. I hadn't killed anyone, right? So I walked out and a reporter came up and said, "How do you feel?" And I said, "Are you kidding me?" And that's the only thing I said. I went home. I think I went to Claudia Riley's house, curled up in a fetal position, and until she wouldn't let me anymore, which was probably about 3 hours later. She wanted me up and talking about it and working on it and processing it. She'd had worse things. Her husband was blown apart at Guadalcanal. He was blind. He had shrapnel still coming out of his eyes where he had been blown apart. I think she thought there were worse things than getting convicted and being a young woman with a good family and education. She just wasn't going to let it be a trauma, a tragedy. She was not going to let me play the tragic part.
So,
which I hated her for at the time.
You talk about, so you go to city jail the first night before they transfer you to Conway?
Oh, you mean when I went back and I presented myself to be put in jail for civil contempt?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't get out for 2 years. That was it. I went in and I never came out.
So when we see the picture of you walking out in shackles, which jail are you going to?
That I'm going to Faulkner County Jail, and that's a very funny story.
So you spend the first night in city jail, I guess, and then they transfer you?
No.
You're going right
no.
out, right there to Faulkner County.
Faulkner County Jail.
Okay.
I'm in the cell, and they decide that they are, they call me out, and they put the handcuffs on. First time in my life. And I'm thinking, I might need to lie on somebody at this moment.
Yeah.
Because I've never had handcuffs. And then they put a waist chain around and they tie the handcuffs to that. So you can't move your hands at all. Not even to fall or something. Then they put those huge, heavy metal shackles on my ankles. And I'm standing there thinking, Susan, you're not as strong as you thought you were. Yeah. What are you doing? I mean, I had a moment of crisis right then. Then they brought these two great big guys from other cells, and they chained me to them. So the three of us are chained together in shackles, handcuffs and waist chains, and we're walking down a dark corridor in the federal building. No one's there. It's after hours. And I'm thinking, thank God no one's here to see this. This would just be awful if people were hanging out, and saw this. And all you can hear is cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. You can hear the chains on the floor, like something out of Edgar Allan Poe. I get to the door. I'm the first in line, of course. Why? I don't know. The door opens. It's sunlight outside. It's dark in the building. And there are a billion people there with parabolic discs and vans. And as you say, satellites. God only knows how many people were. It looked like a sea of people taking pictures and screaming, Susan, Susan, hey, Susan, blah, 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 Susan, blah. And the guy behind me says, God, a curse word, what the hell did you do?
He didn't even know.
No. And I started to smile. I thought that was kind of funny. What did I do? I don't, kill somebody? So I walked out to the van thinking that's the funniest thing that's ever happened to me. This guy, who God knows what he's done, right? He's worried about what I've done.
Who are you and what have you done?
What the? So these poor guys are, their mothers get to see them in chains as well. We're all hoping that we're in the dark and we're going to get to jail without anyone seeing our ignominy, but God, that can't happen. They meant for that to happen. They set that up.
They do it every time. It backfired on them, though, I think. Don't you?
I don't think the world likes seeing someone that was in jail for civil contempt being tied to a bunch of people in chains and led out of a door. It did not look good public relations-wise. From my heart, I liked the guys. I talked to them in the van. They made me laugh. I got to jail and I was a human being. I was intact. My soul was intact. I was good. I was able to say a few kind words to them. They wanted to know if they were going to be in jail the rest of their lives. I asked them what they'd done. They were young. I got to, be nice to them. We were good. We got to jail and we were all helping one another. It was just the coolest. If I'd been by myself, I think I'd have probably broken down, knowing that my mom was going to see that picture. But anyway, it was a moment in time that let me see that I didn't have to play the tragic part, as Claudia would say.
You're incredible.
I'm sorry?
I said, you're incredible.
Oh.
If you can kind of get through all of that and then get to jail and be like, all right, I'm still intact as a human. I mean, that's just...
She's pretty incredible. So you are now at the Faulkner County Detention Center in Conway, Arkansas. What were the ladies doing when you got there?
They were watching television, which it was me starring in chains, and they were all glued to the TV, and they were like, she's coming here. Oh my God, she's coming here. We're going to get to see her. Yeah. And I come in, chink, 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 and they open the door, and there I am, and there I am. I mean, I'm seeing myself on television, and they're seeing me, and they're like going to the TV and watching me. And my God, what an incredible bunch of people. Really? Oh, my God, I love them.
What was the game they played when you got there?
Well, the first thing that happened was this little girl, really tiny young woman, came over to me, and she said, I was so scared when I first came here. And she said, that's my bed up on the wall. It has a window. Why don't you sleep there tonight?
Oh.
And everybody's on the floor sleeping on mattresses, people walking over you. There were so many people on the floor you couldn't walk. You had to walk over people. And she gave up her bed. I just couldn't believe it. And I thought, what's happening? That's what I first thought. Where am I? And after that, these women came over and they started saying, man, I don't get it. You know, they told me I didn't have to testify. I had the right not to. How come you're in jail for not testifying? They keep saying you had to testify. I said, it's kind of complicated, but when you go to the grand jury, they give you immunity and you have to testify. And I didn't. And they said, man, that ain't right. Because, and they said, get over here. Didn't they tell you? And they were asking each other, hey, isn't that the truth? I got that right? You don't have to testify. That's in the Constitution. I said, it's a long story. But I was I had to testify at the time, and I refused.
I don't understand either. I mean, can't you plead the Fifth?
You cannot, because you have been given immunity, and you can only plead the Fifth if you're going to be, I'm pleading the Fifth Amendment because I'm afraid I'm going to be charged with something. You've heard the people say the little line.
Yeah.
And so if you're not going to be charged with something, and you're being told we're going to give you immunity from any testimony that you give today, you have to testify or go to jail. Does that make sense?
I guess. I don't know.
There they are. I knew there was a box somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, they the ladies didn't understand it, and I got great joy out of that. That made me happy too.
And they play a game. How'd you get here?
No, that was later. The first night they just told stories about how you make drugs and how you cook things, and I had never heard any of that stuff. But then they acted it out like, man, you get really paranoid when you do this, and you like pull the curtain back, and you just like looking out the curtain, and you're like, man, we got to get down, we got to get out of the bed, and all of us get under the bed, and I am laughing so hard that I have to go to the bathroom. I mean, I am laughing. They're acting out being paranoid on drugs. They're not taking drugs.
Right.
They're in jail.
Yeah.
But they're acting it out. And they're saying, oh, yeah, me and my boyfriend, he wasn't even taking anything. I got him scared enough to jump up under the bed, too. They're so great. And the reason they did it was because they knew I was scared.
Yeah.
They knew I was hurting. They knew that life had changed for me. And they were doing improv that could be on Broadway. I have never laughed so hard in my life.
It's so backwards that the people in the jail were so much nicer than the people that were prosecuting you that are supposed to be leading our country.
Oh, there's a very embarrassing story about the grand jury because I have to answer the questions, right?
Right.
Or go to jail. That's my choice. And so at the end of that, I had tried to explain to them that they were trying to get me to lie about stuff because they were on the front row, the OIC, the Independent Counsel. I said, those people right there have been trying to tell me that I can get away with anything if I will lie about Bill Clinton. And I just want you all to know that. And they're asking me questions, but I'm not answering them. I'm saying what I want to say. And the grand jury starts banging all the people on their desk and hissing and booing me.
Why?
Because they have been with the OIC and they have told them who I am and what a terrible person I am and with all the things that they've accused me of, and that, I'm just a terrible person. So when I'm saying,
no, these guys are the terrible people.
These people want me to lie to you, and I'm not going to do it, and I am probably going to have to go to jail. And they had bought it. They had bought the disinformation hook, line, and sinker. They booed me and hissed.
How'd that make you feel? Like, oh my gosh.
Well, this is the embarrassing part. I said, because I'm so articulate, I said, I would rather go to jail than be here. It will be a better bunch of people.
And it was.
They played that later in my trial. Yeah, they played that tape. I didn't even know it was being taped. I'm so naive. Yeah, and it's my voice sounding very, the secretary on the Beverly Hillbillies. You know who I'm talking about? That's what my voice sounded like. I would rather go to jail. I will be with a better bunch of people. I'm so embarrassed. And I was like, but I was hurting. Mm-hmm. I was hurting. I was trying to pull it together, and it sounded really silly. But the truth of the matter is it was a better bunch of people. They at least held in suspension whether or not I was guilty. Mm-hmm. These people did not do that. They knew I was guilty before they even heard me speak.
Or they were going to make...
Yes. So these women in jail, I could have been guilty. They didn't know, but they were willing to hear the story.
So the OIC had been tampering with the witness, with the jury.
Well, that's how it works. I hate to tell you, but that's how your justice system works.
Really?
Yes. They get to tell them whatever they want to, and then you come in and testify, and then they get to tell them that you lied and that you were a bad person, and they vote, and you're done. You're cooked. So that's not just me. That's everybody that goes before a grand jury. They're so afraid of it because that's how it works.
I did not know that. So you
really need to hang out with me. You learn a lot about law and order.
You're tough too. Come on. I'm surprised actually you didn't become a lawyer after this.
I applied to law school here, but they wouldn't let me in.
Oh,
I even got its beautiful, beautiful recommendation from David Pryor, and I made a great score on the LSAT. I mean, killed the LSAT.
You would make a great lawyer.
And they would not let me in. And I thought my world was over all over again. I thought, well, that's it. That's the dream. Done. Cooked. Not going to let me in.
What was their reasoning?
They don't give you a reason. No. They just tell you no.
You would be such a good lawyer because you've been on the other side.
That's what I thought. That's what you have to write a story to get in. I said, I think I understand it, and I think I'd like to fight for the people that don't have anybody to fight for them. Yeah. I did. So I just like to do that.
After about a month, you're fine in the Faulkner County Detention Center in Conway, Arkansas, and you make a fatal mistake. What I really like is
you have no idea the stories you are opening up when you start one little sentence, do you? It's really funny because the stories are not in my mind until you say one thing, and then it just comes pouring back. Isn't that funny? I haven't thought about that in forever.
Well, I hope it's not painful.
Oh, it's painful. It's horrible.
Well, you've cried twice, so it is. Yeah. And I've cried with you once. And we'll cry one more time probably. I cried.
Probably about those women. I can always cry about them. Yeah. Always, because they are so helpless and voiceless.
And you met every prison you're in, you met some remarkable woman, and you helped a lot of them. But you make a fatal mistake. This is going to start your trials.
They helped me more than I helped them. Don't forget.
Okay. You are talking to your boyfriend, Pat, on the phone, and you make a fatal mistake after about a month, and you say that it's okay and you're fine and you think you can handle it. Quickly warns you that the calls are being recorded and to speak no more. And they were. How many days before they moved you to another prison?
Oh, God, honey, no, that story, is that in the book?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that should have been edited.
Oh.
I talked all I wanted to, and it was mostly about food. When they ran the tapes back, I was saying, Mom, what are you cooking? Or, Pat, where'd you eat today? Because I was hungry.
All the time.
All the time.
But
everybody in there was hungry, but they moved me a lot. But they didn't move me because of the tapes. They moved me because I was happy.
Yes. You told Pat you were happy over the phone. Yes. You told Pat I was happy.
And they said, this isn't working.
Yes.
We put her in jail to make her miserable and get her to testify because that's the only way you can be put in jail for civil contempt. Civil contempt depends upon it being so miserable that you will actually testify.
Yes.
And when they see that that isn't true, they have to let you go. That's the law.
Except for they kept moving you.
They kept moving me and trying to make it worse and worse and worse, which they were very good at.
They moved you to Carswell Federal Prison in Fort Worth, Texas.
Now, that was pretty cool because I got Air Force uniforms to wear. It was a former Air Force base, I think, and the prison garb was popping, and we got, the shoes, and you looked like a cadet, Everybody looked very spiffy. The only problem I had at Carswell was they put me on the floor with people who were having psychological problems, and it was violent.
Violent?
A violent floor because people were fighting, and it was scary.
You said that there was the Christian Crips.
Oh, that's funny. There was that guy from Watergate that had started that Christian thing in prisons. I can't remember his name.
That sounds crazy.
Somebody from the Watergate had been put in prison, and while there, he had started this movement in America's prisons to become Christian. But in the place where I was, and this is years later because Watergate was much earlier than this, people had taken Christianity to a place it was never meant to be. And they were violently persuading people to be Christian in that place. And it was a gang. It really literally
was the Christian
a gang.
Crips.
Yes, it was a Christian gang.
And you bonded with
I
the
went
Jewish
the other
ladies.
direction.
You did? You went with the Jewish
I went
ladies.
the other way.
Here you thought you were going to grow up to be a preacher's wife, and now you're practicing Judaism in Carswell Federal Prison. I thought that was interesting. All right, this begins the beginning of diesel therapy. I had to look that up. This is the beginning of the torturous tactic by Kenneth Starr and Judge Susan Weber Wright called diesel therapy. It is a form of punishment in which prisoners are shackled and then transported for days or weeks. It has been described as the cruelest aspect of being a federal inmate. It has been alleged that some inmates are deliberately sent to incorrect destinations as an exercise of diesel therapy. I had to look that one up.
Good for you. That is the best description of it I've ever had.
Thank you, Wikipedia.
Let me tell you the hard part for me.
Okay.
Is that your family doesn't know where you are. You've suddenly disappeared in the middle of the night. You've been calling them. They know where you are. They come visit on the weekend. My mother brought food for everybody. I mean, it was joyful to see my family. And I'm gone. They know not where. No one can tell them. And I'm on the road.
How long before they find out?
Well, they know I'm gone, but when I get where I'm going, there's also a prohibition against using the phone or writing anyone or anything for a long time.
Oh, that is scary. All right, this is a great place to take a break. You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Miss Susan McDougal, the woman that wouldn't talk during the 1994 Whitewater trial. Still to come, more diesel therapy, 18 months of hell and 6 more prisons, meeting the attorney that would save her life. Love this guy. Mark, say his last name?
Garrigus.
Mark Garrigus, and the trumped-up meta trial in Los Angeles, California, where Susan is falsely accused of credit card fraud. We'll be right back.
At flagandbanner.com, we have everything you need, from clothes to flags for Razorback tailgating. To get fanned out, come see me. All together now, woo!
Big City!
You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Miss Susan McDougal, defendant in the 1994 Whitewater investigation and trial, and the author of her book, The Woman That Wouldn't Talk. So we've gone through being sentenced. We've been to Conway and met the most wonderful listeners. We both cried over it a little bit, talking about how unfair life is. And now you've been moved to Texas, the beginning of the diesel therapy, torturous practice by the prosecution. And we've talked about Carswell Federal Prison in Fort Worth. You were there for 6 months.
Great food. If you ever get arrested,
That's
make
the place
sure
to
it's
go.
a federal. No, Just make sure it's federal, not county. You don't want to go to county jail. I thought about writing like a, travel guide.
For jails.
Oh,
my God.
10 to 7.
I'd buy it.
Yeah. Definitely make sure you rob a bank and that it's not a liquor store, because a federal bank gets you in a nice, cushy bed and good food.
Oh, my God.
Fruit. I hadn't seen a fruit in forever, and I got fruit at Carswell. Got to walk out on a running track. Yeah, it was a totally different experience. So that did not last long. That was 6 months.
Well, they found a lump in, because you were in the psych ward. You were in the medical area of the. Didn't that where they found the lump in your breast? Was it that one?
Mm-mm. No, Carswell, I wasn't there very long. It was easy. It was what they call, a cushy place to go, and I was thriving there. I was with all the Jewish women who had ever broken the law, which is about 4, and it was. I made. I was there for Christmas. Didn't get to see my family. That was when I was moved. They move you at holidays to make sure it's horribly painful on your family and they don't get to see you and you're miserable because it's Christmas. But I wasn't. I was making challah bread with the Jewish ladies. And we did the menorah, and they prayed for me and blessed me, and it was lovely. I had never done a menorah at Christmas, and it was breathtaking to be in that place.
So why did they move you? What was their excuse they gave you?
They heard I was with the Jewish ladies and baking challah bread. It was.
What was the excuse they gave you?
This lady met me at the door when they brought me in. I was brought in a private jet with, and they came with like automatic weapons to pick me up at the airport from a private jet, like a drug lord. I mean, it was unbelievable. I get to the prison. I'm scared to death completely. And this girl who's filling out my paperwork said, "Hey, could you be Jewish?" And I said, "Well, sure." And she said, "Yeah, it's good in here if you're Jewish. There's a few of us." I said, "I'm in. Mark down Jewish." That's how that happened. That lady was hooking me up. That's what that's called.
She liked you right off the bat.
She hooked me up. Well, they knew I was coming. It was all over television.
Oh, yeah.
And television is everywhere. That's all they have in jail. So they knew I was coming, and that lady got up there, and she said, "I'm going to hook her up," and she did.
You were surprised at how many...
I loved her. I loved all the Jewish ladies.
And you were surprised how much people liked you and sent you letters. You got
bags and bags and bags.
You thought the world had abandoned you and that no one liked you and that the world thought terrible things about you.
No. I did not. No. I did not think about the world.
Oh.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
You're in there, and that's it. And you're thinking, God, it's so quiet and safe, and people are so sweet in here. I couldn't imagine reading the Bible and talking about God, and it's just lovely. And no, the world is gone. And then the sheriff calls me down to his office and says, "This is really stupid of you, because Bill and Hillary Clinton are in Washington having the time of their lives, and you're in here protecting them. How stupid is that?" He said, "I've been a sheriff elected 4 or 5 times in this county, and I know politics, and those people are using you, and you have let them. How does that feel?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I hadn't thought about it like that. Let me think about that." I was laughing because I was like, man, I didn't think they were using me, because this ain't about them. This is about me.
Yeah.
This is about what Susan McDougal does and who I am. And I could care less if they're having a good time. In fact, I hope they are. I don't know them.
Yeah.
Hope they're good. So the next day I go back up. Well, that day I go back up to the cell, and they bring in these huge bags of mail. Huge. You've never seen so much mail from all over the world, not just America, but the world. And the ladies in there, you remember, I have it's built for 6 people, and there's probably 20 women
in that
sleeping
cell
on the floor and everything. Yeah. And they are not using the phone because no one is at the other end to accept a collect call. They're not getting letters because they're abandoned. That's why they're in jail. They have no one. I get these letters, and they're reading them. They're pulling them out, And in the middle of the night in that place, they're reading these letters. It was an unbelievable moment. Or it's, you got to hear this one. Wait a minute, everybody. Listen to this. Dear Susan, we pray for you and the other women that you were with there.
Oh.
We hope that you are all well. We've enclosed a check for $10. We hope that that helps toward anything that you might need.
Do you get to deposit the checks?
Deposit those checks, and on Friday nights, you could order a hamburger from Sonic or something. No, better than Sonic. It was my favorite burger. I can't remember the name.
Cheers Restaurant.
They're gone now.
Oh.
It's an old thing, but it's fire under there. Anyway.
Whoppers, the Whopper.
No.
Backyard burger?
No,
I bet it was like
this is old. You're not even old enough to know.
Okay, I got it. Minuteman.
Minuteman burgers. I called home and said, I can do this. I can get Minuteman burgers up here every Friday. It was the coolest. Anyway, but you had to have money, right? Mm-hmm. So I ordered for everybody because I had money coming from all these people from everywhere. So every Friday night, everybody had a party.
I know they hated to see you go.
Is that not just it was just like, God, could this be any better than this? Mm-hmm. They taught me how to dance. I didn't know how to dance. I was a Baptist. And they had these cameras, and they called upstairs the little guard down there at the cameras, and he said, this is incredible. I would really like to film, because they're teaching me how to pole dance and everything. I mean, it's hilarious. Yeah, they can't believe that my hips don't move. Do you know what I mean? I'm a Baptist. In fact, I walk without my hips moving, And they were showing me all this stuff, and it was just lovely. They were also singing, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, like the movies. They're singing all these hymns. And so these letters, they were naive enough to put their phone numbers in there. And we called them collect. And when I say we, I mean all the women called them and sang to them. Got your letter. It's a collect call from Faulkner County Jail. Will you accept? Yes. Hi, it's Susan McDougal. I have all the ladies here, and they're going to sing to you right now. And they would start singing. I mean, not one person did not accept my call. Not one in the years and calls that I made. Not one. Those people who wrote me got my calls, and we sang to them.
Susan, why didn't you sell your rights to a movie rights to this? You could make 3 movies out of all the stories you have. I've sat with people, and it always, I don't know, it just isn't it yet. Do you know what I mean? They come up with a story or something. All your little segments that you tell are just like that one right there. I'm like, I want to put that in a movie with all the people singing into the phone to the kind heart that sent $10.
Yeah, it turns political, and it's not about the right thing.
Yeah.
Because this wasn't political for me. This was me and making it. Yes. Well, yes. Living into my father landing on Omaha Beach and my mother standing up to the Nazis in Belgium during World War II. Mm-hmm. My mother told me the night I told her I was going to jail, she said, we can do this. We can do this as a family. She said, if we beat Hitler, we can beat this guy. This was about me and my family, not politics. And I can't get it right with a movie. I just can't.
Yeah, I can see that. Sybil Brand Institute, Los Angeles, California. Why are you taken out of Carswell Federal Prison and sent to Sybil Brand Institute?
Because Sybil Brand is notoriously the hardest prison in America.
Awful.
Oh, it was pretty awful.
You said it was squalor.
Oh, it was terrible.
Murderer's Row.
I was on Murderer's Row.
Why?
Yeah, because I guess they did not want me to have friends. Well, lucky for me, that did not work.
Why?
The first day I got there, you have to understand, I'm singing with people. We're eating fruit at Carswell. I'm with the Jewish ladies making challah. I get to Sybil Brand. I don't know where I am. They just bring you. They don't really tell you where you are.
You don't know what city you're in?
I know nothing. And my family doesn't know again where I am for months. So they're walking me down a row, and it looks like Rikers Island or something. You know, that island out in the middle of the water, not Rikers. What is the name of it? Anyway, it's just like that.
Alcatraz.
It has Alcatraz.
Yeah.
I've been there, and it is exactly the same. So there are metal doors, and there's 2 people behind each door. And I'm walking by, and there's a guard with me. And I said, hi. And they just kind of looked at me, and I got to the next cell. I said, hey, hi. And later, they told me, they said, we thought you were crazy because, I mean, you're coming into jail and you're like Miss America. You're waving at us. Yeah, you're waving and going, hey, how are you guys? You know, good to see you, you know. And I said, well, I just wanted to be friendly, for God's sake. What's wrong with you all? I was so mad that they thought I was crazy. I'm just trying to be nice.
Did you get to talk to them, or did they put you in K-10 lockdown?
No. In this deal, it was lockdown for all of us. We were in cells. And I was in a single cell because I was a federal prisoner, and this was a state facility, and they couldn't just put me with anybody. So I had a single cell to myself in the middle, and then all down were people who had murdered people. Down.
Do you get out
sides.
to ever socialize?
No, but they come to my cell. They let the other people out.
Why don't they let you out?
Because I'm a dangerous, they just wouldn't.
So everybody else gets free time to come out of their cells but you?
That is a true story. Yes. I would get out to shower, but they'd lock everybody up, and I'd have time to shower and get back in. And then after, I think the ACLU complained, I got to go in the basketball court by myself. They would let me out and have time to do that. I could not even see the chaplain. That was not allowed. That is the truth.
Is that to make you crazy? Because
I think it's to make me crazy.
socialization?
I do. But see, the ladies would come sit, all these women, on the floor in front of my cell, and we would play Scrabble. I was great. We would play hearts. I got to where I was deadly at hearts. And they taught me things I would never have learned anywhere else in the world.
So you found a way to socialize.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, these cases, some of them are, pretty famous in Los Angeles. I mean, these are people who really killed people, and it became a big case. It was like a famous murderer's row.
And I was surprised when you said most of the people in prisons are young.
I was never in prison. I was in jail.
Oh, wait, what's the difference?
Prison, you are sentenced to a sentence of time in a prison, and you have rights and responsibilities, and there are rules to prison. But when you're held in jail, you're awaiting something. You're not guilty. You're waiting for something. And I was in for civil contempt.
So you're just in limbo.
I'm in limbo, and I am being put
You're just
wherever.
being detained.
I'm being detained.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Detention. There you go.
And all of these women were also not guilty. They were being detained.
You said in your book, I think you said most of you were always shocked at how many women in jail were crimes of self-defense, where they killed somebody out of self-defense usually, were so a lot of them were young bank robbers.
All of them were young. No, most of it was drugs and alcohol that I was in jail with. They're young because when you're old, you go to prison. You've had your chance. They'll give you a few chances with drugs and alcohol. But by the time a woman is older, all her chances are gone. She's in prison, and she's not coming out for a very long time. Remember, drug sentences are enormous. So I'm not seeing older women. I'm only seeing the young girls who are getting arrested for being with boyfriends or guys who are selling drugs. And they're there, and they're arrested.
And it's almost like you've been unlucky, born to alcoholic parents or drug addicted parents, or you've been abandoned, or you've been raped by somebody in your family, and these teenage girls run away from their horrible life they were born to. They were just unlucky at first.
All behavior has meaning. And the meaning of this behavior was that they had never had anybody that ever tried to help them or care for them. They had lived their lives desperately trying to survive their entire lives. lives.
Yeah, selling drugs, selling themselves, whatever it took to live.
Their stories were that one girl said, I looked like my father who had left my mother. She locked me in the bedroom, wouldn't let me eat, wouldn't let me go to school. My sisters and brothers would sneak stuff and try to get it to me, and I ran away. And I ran into a gas station that had a broken door, and I slept in there. I was raped and repeatedly, and I started doing drugs and alcohol, and now here I am. And another said my stepfather, was molesting me, and I took it, and then he started molesting my little sister that was in the room with me, and I ran away. And I got in with a bad crowd, drugs and alcohol, and here I am. I mean, every story was told like I'm telling it, straight. No emotion, no nothing. Almost like a war survivor, just emotionless. And one day I said, this is hurtful to hear. It's killing me. And I said, why are you not crying and upset and just screaming out? And this girl looked at me, not the one telling the story, and she said, Susan, every one of us has got a story. Just like that. Just as cruel and hateful and abandoned as the next story. The next story would just be more horrible.
And so instead of helping these women, we punish them. That's what drove me crazy about reading that book, your book, was that all these women just need some help. And instead we punish them and continue the punishment that
Let me tell you what their biggest fear is. I asked one night, I said, what are you most afraid of? And they said, getting out. Because they don't have anywhere to go, and they don't know what to do. And they don't have the first, last, and the rent for an apartment. And their children are gone. They're in the system, and they don't even know where they are. So they don't want out. They want to be safe.
And they're not learning how to live out.
No, they're not given any instruction on how to live out. And they are people. They are people who could be saved, and they're not.
And could be contributing citizens to.
But can you imagine saying our biggest fear is getting out because they keep you until the last minute, midnight, because they get paid by the state. So they let you out in the middle of the night in Los Angeles or wherever we were in Little Rock, and they have to get somewhere. They have to have help. So what happens? They get right back in to the same thing they were doing in the beginning because they've got nothing.
It's midnight when they get let out?
In the middle of the night. Unless they're bailed out. I'm talking about let out.
Yeah.
I used to bail people out. This is a story. Mark Garrigus, my brother Bill, all of us. $50.
To bail people out?
Yeah, $100. Get somebody out to go back to their children, save their apartment, keep their car paid. They didn't have that much money. But they came right back.
Yeah, because they didn't have any money.
And I told them, we're not doing that anymore. Yeah. You all are staying in here with me.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about this.
I'm going to teach y'all.
No, not teach. I didn't know anything. I said, we're going to figure this out together. What's this about? How come you're back here?
Yeah.
And it was remarkable. It really was. Mm-hmm. Just talking to them and trying to figure out, what do you do now?
Mm-hmm. How are you going to act the next time you get out?
Where are you going to go?
How
can you be safe? Where are institutions in our cities where I can give you names of people and they can help you?
Yes.
Yeah, because there's not anybody doing that.
I know.
In the jails, in our, I think it was Mark Twain said, look at the jails of your culture, and that will tell you who you are.
Whoa.
Good old Mark Twain.
I think it was him.
Is this the school, is Sybil Brand where your lawyer came to see you that kind of turned your life around? He's kind of your savior. Mark Garrigus.
I had a breast lump, and they had released the press, which they're not supposed to do. And my mother and family found out. They were so upset. They thought I would die in prison of breast cancer or something, And the ACLU saw it and came to see me. And they said, Susan McDougal, your attorney is here. And I said, that's impossible. I don't have an attorney. Yeah, I learned. Yeah, I learned later on to say yes to everything that sounded good.
Yeah.
So I went, and she said, listen, I know a guy, and he's great, and I think he'll take your case if you're interested. And she said, I really think it's horrible what they're doing to you. And I said, yeah, I'd love to see him. So he shows up, and they said, Susan McDougal, your attorney's here. And I said, yes. And I went down there. He was impeccably dressed. You have to understand, I've been in jail a year now, and all I've seen is just horrors. Nobody looks good in there.
Yeah.
And Mark is just impeccably dressed, and his shoes were the finest leather. He had a leather case that was so soft, and I didn't touch it because I was afraid to, but it was lovely. And I thought, I like this guy. And he said, I have a small firm. It's me and my dad and my brother. And he said, we don't have a whole big firm that we can devote to this, but I'll tell you, if you want me to help you, I will. And I said, the only thing you have to promise me is that you won't bargain me away. You won't do something that's going to bargain that I would testify or that something like that. That's the only thing I ask that you not do. And he said, I understand. So we agreed. And I called home, and everybody lost their minds. They said, what? What have you done? Yeah, they couldn't believe I was negotiating with an attorney in the jail where I was, but it just was perfect. Absolutely perfect. And he was fabulous. Oh, my gosh. He made mincemeat of them. He was one guy in a mom and dad pop store, and he took the OIC to school. I was never convicted or put in jail or nada again.
Yeah.
He came on the case, and it was over.
So why did they move you to Twin Towers?
They closed Sybil Brand.
I was wondering about that.
They closed it.
It was on a fault line in California was the excuse they used.
We had an earthquake, and they all ran and left us in there.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my gosh.
That is a true story. They ran like scared rabbits, and we all just we can't see each other. We can just yell out of hey, are you guys in? Yeah, we're all here. I said, where'd they go? They ran. I mean, and it's shaking and it's moving. And somebody is saying the doors may open, like in the Bible when there's the earthquake and all the prison and Paul gets released. Yeah. And I'm like, whoa. When you're in my position, things like that sound real. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Let's all go together. And so they closed it because we could have all been mushed in there.
Yeah, you could have. So you go down to Twin Towers, and you said there's this ever-present smell of Lysol, rotting food, slamming doors, prisons loud. Is that just every prison, or is that just some prisons? I guess they're all just slamming doors and loud.
The editor, I didn't read the book after he edited it.
What?
That just isn't true. Twin Towers was brand new. I was like the first prisoner in Twin Towers.
Oh, okay.
And it's scarier than anything else because it's very futuristic. You don't see anyone. People push a button and the door opens. People push a button and the door closes.
It's cold.
Food. Oh. It looks like the future of the worst place you've ever been. And I do well with people. I like people like me, but there's no one. I have absolutely no one. And they've put me in a glass cell, and the guy from the Sybil Brand said they've got a really good place for you. They're going to put you in a glass cell like Hannibal Lecter. They're going to make it as hard as they possibly can. So I get there, and I'm in there, and on the post, there's a huge, this place is enormous. Huge thing, it says, if Susan McDougal speaks to anyone coming or going from her cell, she is not to be allowed out again. And that was signed by the sheriff in Los Angeles County. And he later testified that came from Kenneth Starr and the OIC. Because I was speaking to people. I was okay.
They're like, we keep moving her around, and she keeps making friends everywhere she goes.
They put me in the one place that was not going to happen.
So it is a sensory deprivation chamber, basically.
Absolutely. That's where this beautiful man from the ACLU brought me a book a day about sailing. And it changed everything. I mean, I literally was sailing. I was reading that from the moment I could get the book in my hands until I fell asleep, and then the next day starting again. And it was about life on the high seas back in the days of the schooners and the big ships. And it wasn't anything I would have ever read in a million years, but it saved my life because I was there in that story.
How long did you have to stay there in that deprivation chamber?
I don't, the whole time I was there. The whole time I was there. I tried to tell them I wouldn't hurt anybody if they'd let me out of there, but that wasn't the point.
That wasn't the point.
Sometimes they would just forget I was there because there weren't a lot of these. There was me, and then there was the normal things, right? So they would forget food. They would forget clean laundry. Because they were doing it down the row, and then I'm over here. There was a button on the wall, but I pushed it 1,000,000 times, and no one ever answered it.
So it didn't go anywhere.
So what I was worried about, what I got an obsession about, because it's easy to become obsessed in a room by yourself, was that I was going to get sick and no one would know and I would die and they'd find me there. Because they didn't answer ever, and they often did not come by there.
How did you get out?
The ACLU sued Kenneth Starr, and he was due to appear in court and answer for all of the moves and all of the way I was treated, and he sprung me and got me to go to the Metropolitan Jail downtown in Los Angeles.
He, being Kenneth Starr of the ACLU?
He did not want to show up at that hearing because everybody knew what had been happening to me. And he did not want to sit in that chair and say, why was she sent there? Why did she go there? What is that about? We understand she was held in isolation. And they called me on somebody came by or something, and they said he doesn't want to go to court. He doesn't want to answer the suit by the ACLU. So because you're in isolation and because you're in this deprivation cell, we're going to win this case. And he doesn't want that. So he's transferring you to the Metropolitan thing.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So he himself sprung me from civil brand. I always liked that.
Yeah, a little retribution right there, a little bit. All right.
And they organized candle things outside the windows there. And
what do you mean?
People singing. The ACLU, they organized all sorts of candlelight.
Like vigils?
Yeah, vigils out there.
Could you see them?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, people were singing.
For you?
Yes. Yes. It was lovely. It was great. I mean, I literally was losing it in there, though. It wasn't good. I mean, I really was having a hard time in there.
Mentally losing it?
Yeah, there was no privacy. I took a sheet off the bed and put it over me to go to the bathroom. I mean, there was watching me day and night, 24 hours a day, lights on, no privacy. It was
no
just
lights ever turned off?
Horrible. Well, they don't turn the lights all the way off. I'm sure they were dimmed or something, but yeah, it was just terrible. It was the worst.
All right. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Miss Susan McDougal, the woman that wouldn't talk during the 1990s.
I promise this is going to be over, people. I'm going to leave if it's not. I'm not going to subject you to more of this.
Yes, you are. We're almost finished.
We are.
When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Miss Susan McDougal, the woman that wouldn't talk during the 1994 Whitewater trial. Still to come, Jim McDougal dies in jail. Susan McDougal heads back to court and back to jail, but eventually the truth comes out, vindication. And last, how she started over and what she's doing now. We'll be right back.
Hey kids, will y'all help me decorate for the holidays?
You can decorate for Christmas or Halloween. Boo!
I can help you decorate for Thanksgiving. Hey Mom, try this light up headless snowman.
Flagandbanner.com's gift shop has everything you need for Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas decor. Did I mention Christmas? We have so many decorations for Christmas. Drop by our showroom in downtown Little Rock or shop online at flagandbanner.com.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy. I'm speaking today with Miss Susan McDougal, defendant of the 1994 Whitewater investigation and trial, and author of her book, The Woman That Wouldn't Talk. So you've been in jail for a while now. You've been moved to the Metropolitan Detention Center in Albuquerque, New Mexico because...
No.
Not yet?
Never. It's these wind-up of you delineating my life that is the most horrifying to me.
You got to read your book.
I never went to New Mexico in my life. Even to this day, I haven't been there.
Where's the Metropolitan Detention Center?
That's in downtown Los Angeles.
Oh,
yeah, the one she mentioned earlier.
Oh, I Googled the wrong detention center.
Thank God, because I'm always listening thinking, did you go there? No. Was that one of them? Yeah.
So you went from Sybil Brand to Twin Towers to the Metropolitan Detention Center in Los Angeles.
Downtown LA.
Not this one.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought that was weird because I was like, I thought it was in LA, and then I Googled up to learn a little bit about that detention center.
You have really done I'm saying, I have been in a lot of interviews, okay? I've been with the best, the top in the field. You have done more research on my life than anybody.
I'm in love with it.
I've never known anyone that knows more about my life than I do.
Well, not all it's right, though.
I'm trying to keep up with you.
It's not all right, though. That's the problem. So some of my research wasn't so good. But anyway, so now you're at the you were at Sybil Brand Institute. You had to leave there because of an earthquake.
Yes.
Then you get moved to Twin Towers, and you're in a sensory deprivation glass cell, and the ACLU gets you out of there before you lose your mind. And you now are moved to the Metropolitan Detention Center by Kenneth Starr, who's trying to save his skin. When did you learn that Jim died in jail?
There. I was very close friends with Rabbi Kriegel there. And I had met Rabbi Kriegel because I had been Jewish in the beginning, and so it follows you everywhere you go. So I was Jewish everywhere I went.
So if you didn't hear that, people, you got to go back to the beginning to find out why this Baptist turned Jewish in jail. But go ahead.
So because I had marked the Jewish card, I was Jewish, and the rabbi came to see me, and I speak to him all the time. He's lovely. He's great. He's still in my life. Also, he was very good friends with the Catholic priest there, Father Santo. So they became great friends of mine. It happened that I met them because one Christmas night, I'm there, and I hear someone singing, and I'm in deprivation cell, right, singing Silent Night. And I don't know what's happening because I really think I'm losing my mind in this deprivation cell. And there is a nun as round as she is tall in her little nun outfit, and she has a speaker in each of her pockets of her apron, and it's blasting Silent Night, and she's singing it. And she comes up to this round glass cell thing and puts her nose and her hands up there, and she goes, "Wait a minute, I know who you are. You're Susan McDougal. I've met you. I can't believe it." And I'm like, you and me both. I can't believe you're here, right? A nun just walking through the place, and she stops, and she's got speakers, and it's Christmas night, and I'm not with my family. And she just stands and talks to me for the longest time. And then she goes and gets the people who work there. And she says, "Susan McDougal is here. You've got to go see her. She can't have anybody come to see her." And they come see me all the time. Father Santo and Rabbi Kriegel. He's in Los Angeles now. And Father Santo's died, but great people. So Jim died, and I have a brother named Jim. And Father Santo came to see me, and he said, "I have to tell you," he's sitting right beside. No, I went to his office, and he's holding my hand, and he said, I have really terrible news. Jim has died. And I thought it was my brother. And I started wailing. And I kept saying, my poor mother, I'm here. Jim is dead. The world is over, you know. And he didn't know why I was screaming and crying so much, because everybody was kind of mad at Jim for getting me into this in the first place.
Jim McDougal,
yes, I mean, he was persona non grata by everyone who loved me, right? And I finally got that. And it wasn't good, because I had so hoped that one day we could talk about this and he could be forgiven. And he could go talk to you and other people and say, you know, they scared me into saying those lies. Mm-hmm. They frightened me. None of it was true. And I wanted him to have that redemption, as you call it, my redemption tour. Mm-hmm. I wanted him to have that because he needed it. I didn't really need it that much. And he was dead, and that was never going to happen. He was never going to be redeemed. And I hated them for that.
Hickman Ewing gave his eulogy.
That should have had lightning involved. It should have had thunder and lightning and, you know, wrath of God involved, because Hickman Ewing is who let Jim die in prison because he couldn't, they were testing urine for drugs, and Jim was old and he couldn't pee, and they locked him in a cell like I was in, a deprivation cell with nothing in there at all, because they were trying to test his urine for drugs. And Jim's like me, he didn't even know what a drug was. And he died of a heart attack there. And they did that after telling him he would be in a hospital, he would be fine. Such bad people to let him, and nothing Jim did. Let's just say Jim did everything they accused him of. That was not supposed to happen, to be dead of no care in that place. So that was horrible.
And he gave this glowing eulogy. You called it sanctimonious eulogy for the guy.
Well, Hickman had a lot of guilt. He had a lot carrying on him, because the people where Jim was being held, and I don't want to go on too much about Jim because my family will kill me. They're still mad. They loved him. The same reasons I told you I loved him. He knew literature. He had great stories to tell, and he was kind, and he was just a good guy. Several people from where he was held came to see me when I was free and said, we loved him.
Mm. So you got out in March.
And I think Hickman Ewing knows that Jim didn't commit those crimes either. And
right.
He died in prison.
Yes.
With you all telling him he was going to go to a hospital.
Yeah. They coerced him into doing all this.
Yes.
March the 6th, 1998, you get out of your civil contempt. It expired after 18 months. March the 7th, very next day, you begin a 2-year Whitewater sentencing that you had been appealing for this whole time.
Yep. That's right.
And they take you to the Oklahoma City Transfer Center, I believe.
Yes.
To go to Pulaski County because you're going to go for a medical hearing for this lump in your breast.
The Oklahoma Detention Center was really horrible because it was just a way station, and nobody cared about you or tried to help you or cared if you ate or cared if anything happened. And I was there for a while. And then I went to Pulaski County, and I had a medical hearing when I was there to see if they could continue to keep me in jail when I wasn't doing well, when I was not well.
Yeah.
Physically well. And I won that hearing.
Yes.
I got released. Yes.
Yes. And I think this may have been when I cried in the book. Judge Howard said, take her out immediately because they found a lump in your breast. But then they also found you had scoliosis that was getting so bad.
It was so much worse than when I'd gone in. I mean, I had x-rays from when I'd gone in, and because of chains and nowhere to lie or sit or, all of that, it had really deteriorated. I was having trouble lying down, sitting, doing anything. I was in a lot of pain. Still am, actually.
Really? So the judge immediately releases you and sends you home for 90 days to Camden,
He said
Arkansas.
forthwith. He said, Marshals, do you understand me? I mean, forthwith. And man, they jumped up and got me out of those handcuffs, and there I was, free as a bird.
And that's the meal
And
you
he
had.
wasn't kidding either. He pointed at him. You hear me, Marshals? I mean, forthwith. And by God, forthwith it was.
Wow.
And we had the biggest party over at the Capitol Hotel. And people came from everywhere. The hotel was full of just people who came.
You haven't been out of jail in years. What did you think about all of that? You're out. Did you have any clothes? What did you do?
I went and bought clothes. Looked pretty good. I've got pictures. I was pretty happy about that. I hadn't had real clothes on in forever. I refused to wear clothes to the courtroom because the other women didn't have them. And I wasn't going to get dressed up if they couldn't get dressed up. So I was mad. I had all kinds of things I did when I was in jail to protest. And that's a whole nother story. But I got there, big party. Everybody came. Pat said I was twirling, because there were people everywhere, and I was just twirling and twirling and seeing everybody. And some of the ladies that I had been in jail with came, who were released, and I got to see them.
Oh, that's
It was
nice.
lovely. It was just great.
And the chef made you a chicken dish called Freebird.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I thought that was funny. So, but now you got to go back, and you're now being tried for.
No, I was in jail when they charged me again. I was in jail, and I was had been there for a few years, and Pat and Mark come in, and they look like death warmed over. I thought somebody had died. And they said, this is really hard to tell you. I said, he's charged you again. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, he's charged you with civil contempt, with criminal contempt. It's a criminal offense not to testify after you've been in civil contempt for so long. You are now a criminal for not testifying.
And that has a much longer sentence.
Yes, and you don't get hearings, and you don't, yeah.
So when was the meta trial in all of this?
Wait. So I say to them, good, because he will have to come and say why I'm in contempt. And I will get to talk and say why I'm in contempt. And we'll finally have a real trial that is going to tell people what this is all about. And I was excited. And it happened. It really was. It was a fabulous trial. It was the best trial of all of them.
Thanks to Mark
Garrigus.
It
was wonderful.
When was the meta trial doing all of this?
It was between all of that.
It was between all of this.
Yeah.
And you went to when you were in Los Angeles, which I think maybe one of the reasons you got transferred out to Los Angeles because you had to do hearings out there. And the trip of going from the jail to go into court to do the hearings is just awful. I mean, you have to have a cavity check before when you come back in. You get jailed. She's nodding. You get handcuffed, shackled.
Yep.
And you ride with these horrible guys.
You get up at the break of dawn, no food all day. Go to court. You go with the same people because they're on the same hearing route that you're on. Mm-hmm. And one of the big things that I found horrifying is that people who are mentally ill are on that route, and they're in there every time going to hearings, and they don't even know who they are. They don't know what they're accused of, and they're just going to jail and going to hearings. And it's just like you said, cavity checks, no food.
And the men haven't seen a woman in so long, and you're in there chained to the wall, and there's another man over there chained to the wall.
No, there's no wall. There's a cage in the middle of the bus, and I'm chained to the chains that hold this cage because I'm a federal prisoner and everybody else is state prisoners. And I hear chains rattling up and down, and I'm facing forward, but I turn to look at that, and he's masturbating behind me in the bus. But that's so common that it's almost laughable. But it was just another awful thing But the really awful thing is that we keep mentally ill people in jail and we keep sending them to hearings and they don't even know what to say or what to do. And they're really sick and we don't even do anything about that. They just keep going and keep being kept in jail. They don't get any help at all. I didn't know that until I was in there. I mean, we really do that as a nation. That's really sickening. And men are sexually deprived, but so are women. I mean, women fall in love with guards and do all kinds of things because that's young people.
That's what young people do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we always got a lecture about you can't do this and you don't think about that and try not to do. And I told the guys that these are young people. I'm old. These people are still in the prime of their lives. That ain't going to happen.
You're like 40 years old now.
Yes.
Gosh. So you go to this trial with to the meta trial and 13 counts and you're not convicted on any of them. They're all not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. And then the jury goes out to talk to the public and tell us what they said.
They said she's not guilty. She's innocent. There's not one shred of truth in it. Nothing. This is all trumped up, and they found out that it was connected to Kenneth Starr and that he had he had somehow convinced the Metas that they should do this thing, and they did.
I wonder if he had something on them.
No, I think that they were still angry at my leaving, and it was also a pretty famous thing to be a part of.
You're kidding me.
I think it was about celebrity, and I think it was about being a part of something bigger than themselves.
Wow, that's
But the
weird.
Jury was. Again, where do these people come from? They were fabulous. They were not guilty. Give me a break. She's innocent. None of it is true.
Mm-hmm.
The worst trumped up thing ever. So they get in planes and trains and automobiles and come to Arkansas for the last trial. They're there. They're in the front row
for
of
Whitewater
the trial.
2. For Whitewater 2.
They are going to go out to the press every day and say, we know who she is. We have investigated her. She has been investigated by the best. She's not guilty. She's innocent. They were the best. They were the best antidote to misinformation because they were real people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just everyday Joe, and they had driven across the country to say, this is made up. This is a sham.
Everyday people can make a difference. So everybody wanted to be on the jury. So the judge had to do some sort of jury nullification to keep, because everybody wanted to be on the jury.
No. We had a bunch of funny people, though. We had a lady that dressed up in a Star Trek outfit and had a name that came from Star Trek. I mean, only in Little Rock, Arkansas. Yeah, really.
Wow.
We had some really funny people. It was.
Did she make it on the?
She did. She did. She had to. Yeah, it was pretty funny. Now, jury nullification is when you admit that you did what they say you did, and the jury still finds you innocent. Because am I guilty of contempt?
Yes.
Oh yeah. I told them I'm pretty contemptuous.
Yes.
Of this whole thing.
Yes.
So jury nullification is when you say, I did this thing, and the jury said, we don't care.
Yes.
Yes. And that was fun. They said, I don't know that this is enough. I wish we really could do more. We are so sick of Kenneth Starr in Arkansas.
Yeah.
He needs to go.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty much what the after story was from the jury.
They give this part, just, I don't know how you lived through this, but your attorney, the OIC's lawyer, Mark Barrett, gave a vicious closing argument. Was that on this trial or the meta trial that you had the vicious?
No, that was Mark. That was in this trial, and I had made him angry by arguing with him, and not many people do that when they're accused of a bunch of stuff and they want to, have a nice trial and be a good girl. But I had it, and I told him, I said, you know what you're doing. You know who you are. You know what you've done. You know what you've done to me. And he was asking me questions. And I said, no, I want to talk about what you've done. And I was really just so bad. But I had been in jail, people, forgive me, but I was a little angry at this point. And I just kept, and the judge admonished me. Again, the first judge said he was going to put me in the cone of silence. They didn't have one of those in Little Rock, so he just threatened me with more jail time. And Mark said that is not going to help her at all.
Or scare her.
Yeah, that's not going to help you at all, really. Yeah. So I was telling him what I thought of the OIC. I said, Kenneth Starr, all of you know that you've made this up and it's not real and you've done this to me and you answer my questions. And so he was pretty angry. You can imagine. Most people don't try to make the prosecutor hate them. And he did. He was vicious. It was horrible. Terrible.
And Mark gets his chance to get up, and he gets up and does a superb job. He brings in his witness. He calls witnesses from the first jury trial, the first Whitewater one, and says, "Did you know this about them?" Yeah.
Yes. He not only did that, the really fun part of that, and what would make a great movie, is he gets prison people from every jail and place I've been, not prison, jail people, detention people from everywhere, puts them on the stand and says, tell us about Susan McDougal. Tell us what you know about Susan McDougal. She's here for contempt of court. Is that how you experienced Susan McDougal? And they said, no, we saw her pray with the women there. We saw her, she took a vote to see what TV program we should all watch so that there was no fighting. When Susan McDougal was there was no fighting. They were just voting and dancing. And I sat there in the courtroom going, this is the coolest thing ever, because I had been in these places with people who were hurting and who were not helped and who needed a break, and it changed my life forever. And then I had people get up and document what they saw and how they saw it and what happened.
And how you changed their life.
It was just these are the guards. These are not the women. These are the people watching us in there.
The people at the first place, Faulkner County Detention Center, said that they had never had such a peaceful time in the jail, except for when you were there. Said no one ever fought, no one ever did anything. It was the best time they'd ever had at the jail.
These women never thought of voting. I said, listen, all we have to do, get pieces of paper and write down what you want to watch, and whoever has the most votes, we're going to watch it. And they just really liked that. They thought that was the best idea they'd ever heard. Another big fight was cold or hot. It's too hot in here. It's too cold in here. Write it down. What do you want the temperature to be? And we did it, and they said, it's done. We agree. That's a great temperature. It was just democracy at its best. Mm-hmm. So I loved the testimony. It was really great.
And then Mark got witnesses up, or people from the first trial, and said, "Did you know that the OIC? Did you know this about the first trial?" And they all, some of those women were so upset that they had voted to.
Oh, the jurors from the first trial. Yes.
Oh yeah, jurors.
They were upset that they had voted guilty. Because it was kind of railroaded, and they felt railroaded.
And once they heard the whole picture instead of just the OIC, like you said, who was managing the jury, once Mark explained what else was going on, they were like, well, the OIC never told us that. Well, we didn't know that. And they were very upset with some of the decisions they had made.
I'm afraid that you all are going to hear all these stories, and I'm happy through all of this, and that's kind of crazy. But think about sitting there and being me and having people get up and just give great stories about you. It's just one after another. Mark had gotten everybody in my life that had seen what was going on and put them up there, and it was just fabulous.
Well, compared to what the OIC lawyer had done, you needed that. Because the other guy was all about character assassination.
The real great thing was I didn't know. He never told me. I'm going to go get all these people from your life, and you're going to be so excited to hear what they have to say.
I know.
I'm just sitting there going, who's next?
So what happened? What happened to that trial? Complete.
I was let go.
And
I was out.
Did you just walk out?
I walked out. Had a party.
Never went back to jail again?
Never went. No, never went back to jail. Not accused of anything. I don't think I have a parking ticket. I'm good. I didn't have it before that, and I'm clean now. Clean and sober. The only part of my life where I was ever accused of anything is that part.
And boy, is it a big one. All right, this is our last break. It's the conclusion of our interview with Susan McDougal, the woman that wouldn't talk during the 1994 Whitewater trial. Still to come, Susan's unexpected pardon from President Clinton, how she has started over, what she's doing today. We'll be right back. You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy. I'm speaking today with Miss Susan McDougal, defendant in the 1994 Whitewater investigation and trial, and author of her book, The Woman That Wouldn't Talk. Finally, vindication. After 6 years, you are free. And I love this quote. You said, "We took on the most powerful prosecution in the country, an organization with unlimited budget and incredible resources, and beat them."
We did.
But you suffered.
Well, I don't know that I suffered.
You
Did it
lost
sound
everything.
Like I suffered?
You lost everything.
Oh, I gained everything.
Well, that's a great attitude to have.
I love it.
Well, you'll hear. I'll tell you. You'll agree.
So you're right. Here we go. It's President Clinton's last day in office. You are watching TV, and what happens?
Okay, it's let's see. No. It's his last day in office, and Bush is coming in as president, and Claudia Riley and I are lying in the floor at her house grieving because we're going to have George Bush in, and all of a sudden a news announcer says, "Word of pardons has come in," and I have not applied for a pardon because I don't want to be pardoned. I'm mad about it, and I want to keep it as a sign of my struggle. I've not applied, but the person says, "Great news! So and so's been pardoned. So and so's been pardoned. So and so's," and we're eating breakfast on the floor. We're having bacon, greasy eggs, biscuits. I mean, it's horror breakfast, eating and. We're horrible. Our hair is matted, no makeup, and we're in pajamas. And we're watching this. And the very last thing, after a bunch of people, they say, "And Susan McDougal has been pardoned." And we just go crazy. We're just going crazy. And the doorbell rings. And it's the world. It's every news station. The parabolic discs are back. Everybody's there. We have bacon on our hands, and we're at the door. We look crazy. And Claudia says, "We have to make a fire. We're going to have to put a fire in the fireplace and make this place look good." So she's designing lighting. Do you know what I mean? And putting furniture where it ought to be. And she's telling me, "Don't put that on. That's not good for you. Put that." And we're about to go on television, and I've been pardoned. And so the best thing that I think Claudia said was, "We interrupted the Bush inauguration." We did it.
It was big news.
We were in the middle of his inaugural address there. And that felt good. That felt really good. Yeah, we had, oh my gosh, it was unbelievable. It was just such a celebration. We hadn't asked for it, and we got it.
Yeah.
It meant a lot to my mother.
I bet it did.
She didn't like me being a felon. It's really hard.
It's really hard on parents.
We'd be in Walmart, and I'd say, "I've never seen that before. I guess it was when I was in jail." And she'd go, "Please,
Stop
please.
saying that.
Maybe there's someone who doesn't know, maybe in the world. Could you stop?"
Didn't Jim Guy Tucker kind of wear it as a badge of honor a little bit, like late in life? He was kind of like, "Yeah, I am a felon."
And I made it through it. You said people always ask you if the Clintons ever called you.
He did. He called me, closer to the time of for a long time, I did not speak to him. I think a lot of it was everybody said it, he's probably helping me, he's probably giving me money. And we both were like, "Don't call, for God's sake."
And everybody thought you were having an affair with him, and you were somehow covering it up.
Yes. So we were like, "Do not call, do not speak to me." And no, I had not talked to them at all. Then Harry started doing this documentary thing, and he called me and he said, "I've read your book." And he said, "I am really it hurts to read the part about the glass cell.
Yeah.
And I said, well, the really terrible thing that I think about sometimes is that there's somebody in there right now.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm just so sorry. And I said, there's no way you could have known. He said, I'm just so sorry I didn't know you were there.
Could he have done anything?
What could he have done?
I don't think he could have done anything.
Nothing.
Somebody asked me why he didn't get you out of jail. And I said, I don't think presidents can do that.
Yeah, I don't think presidents can say, release her. She is free. No. We were both very much trying to keep our integrity. I think. I was trying to keep, let me speak for myself. I was trying to keep my integrity. I did not want someone to say, she's doing this to get money. She's doing this to get fame or fortune. I just wanted to do it for myself. And getting the pardon helped my mom, made her feel much better about life. And I don't have to write that I'm a felon when I apply for a job or anything. And I can vote.
And you can go to town. You can go to the country.
Yes.
The Star Report.
Like everybody doesn't know when I apply for a job. Hello.
Yeah, I did think about changing your name. I was like, would I have changed my name if I was Susan McDougal, or would I have loved it? I mean, I think about Monica Lewinsky. Did she change her name after it was all over with? Or do you like, it's a badge of honor, I mean.
For me, people hug me in grocery stores and cry. I mean, it's pretty moving. We prayed for you.
Yeah.
Everyone. I mean, my mother tells people, go to the grocery store with Susan. It's an experience. Because people that I've never seen, I wrote you, I sent you a check, my family prayed for you, and it's just so good to see you. I mean, it is unbelievable. Even to this day, I have people who walk up and say, I prayed for you every day through that.
Oh, that's nice. So the Star Report came out, 11 counts against Clinton, all about lying under oath about his sex life. That's all they could find on him after ruining everybody's life. 11 counts of Clinton lying under oath about his sex life. I love this quote you said, too. The Star Report shows the president's pursuers were a bunch of middle-aged, moralistic morons who were obsessed with sex. They really were obsessed with sex.
They really were. Yeah, they asked Claudia Riley on the stand, did you have an affair with Bill Clinton? I mean, the lady's 80 years old. And she said, he never asked me.
Go, Claudia.
Yeah, she was not going to have that moralistic stuff on her watch, for sure.
I would have been upset with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette for not being more forthcoming with what was going on.
Well, they had just squashed the Gazette.
Had they?
Yes.
They'd just taken
over. And it was a time where we were really grieving the Gazette, if you remember.
Yes.
I mean, that was the paper. But they did good things for me, too. They put some pretty pictures in the paper for me.
You've got
let me tell you, a good picture when you're in jail, that's worth a lot. That's worth a lot.
So here's a quote. You said, at the beginning of your incarceration, as you lie on your bunk in jail thinking, you thought, how did a small-town Arkansas girl with dreams of being a preacher's wife end up a nationally known felon? How could a simple real estate project that had failed miserably end up becoming the most expensive investigation in the history of the United States? How could a young girl who had grown up giving patriotic speeches to the American Legion about the greatness of the U.S. government end up in jail for defying that government? You answered any of those questions?
Well, first of all, I love my editor because I never thought it like that. But I did wonder how this was going to change my life. I mean, many times I was afraid of how this would change my life, what would happen to me when it was all over. And I answered that pretty quickly. I didn't mourn for long. I came out of jail, and everywhere I went, people saw the unfairness of it, because people are pretty smart. You can fool some of the people some of the time. But people catch on. The people finally get it. And people were so giving and loving and kind. I was asked to give speeches all over America to law groups and to people who were advocating for people in jail. I got to raise money for women who were in jail. I mean, after I left jail was the best time of my life, to be loved and cared for and people being kind to me. It was amazing. So that question of what's going to happen to me, And will I make it? Will people be angry or upset or something like that? Was answered immediately. And it was not true. People saw the unfairness of it and the ridiculousness of it.
You came back to Arkansas.
My mom and dad were sick. My dad, my mom had a heart attack, and my dad had had a stroke. And I had a lot of guilt. I felt like it was because of me. I felt like they were sick because of what had happened, and it wasn't fair to them. I mean, they really hadn't asked for it, had they? No. And so I just said, I'm going home. I'm going to take care of them. And I said, you know, this is how I want to live my life right now. This is it. I want to give this time to them, and I want to be with them. And I was with them till they died.
Pat stayed with Pat. Your boyfriend stayed with you through the whole time, by your side. Your brother Bill, Pat were your rocks. Are you still with Pat?
No. What happened exactly with that? Because we're still friends. You know, we still talk. I'm trying to think. I think the whole thing had worn us down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, talking about it, being in it, spending all of our energies on it, you know. And I was traveling a lot, and he was starting a new law practice, which was great for him, and he was happy doing that. And we were doing the documentary, and I was doing a lot of television and stuff like that, and we just grew apart. One of the great things that I got asked to do during that time was to speak to an international group of chaplains, which was the College of Pastoral Supervision and Psychotherapy. And they are an accrediting body for chaplains around the world, huge organization. And I went to speak to them. And it was sold out. I mean, it was just like packed with chaplains. And they asked me about my time in jail and what that was like. And I got to talk about the inequities of poor people and people who don't have a voice and people who can't afford a lawyer and what happens to them as opposed to people who have help like I did and families that support you. And they, at the end of it, someone from UIMS, which I'd never met, walked over to me and he said, "What do you plan to do with your life?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to raise money for women in jail, and I'd like to do some jail work, you know, with women and help them out." He said, "Well, do you know what you're doing?" And I said, "No." And he said, "We can help you with that." He said, "Why don't you come and train to be a chaplain, and you'll know exactly what to do to help people." And I said, "I'm in." Yes, absolutely. Not knowing at all what it was. But his voice and his way of being and the way that everybody in there was so moving and just great, great, great people. So I came and I studied at UAMS, I think for about 6 years in training.
6 years to be a chaplain?
Well, part-time for 4 years while my parents were ill. Then they died, and then 2 years to train. And I was a slow learner, too. I tried to quit a bunch of times because it was so hard on me. I didn't really know how to be with people who were dying and sick and hurting and families that were feeling that way. But as I trained and took the chaplain training that UAMS still offers at UAMS, I got it. And I decided that that was what I wanted to do because it was a lot like what I had been doing with the women in jail. A whole lot like it. Supporting people who were suffering.
Yeah.
And loving people who were suffering and being with them and caring about them. Understanding them.
So are you a chaplain at UAMS or are you a chaplain for jail?
No, I was a chaplain at UAMS for a long time. I still did some jail things, but I now am the head of the department.
Whoa, go Susan.
I train chaplains now.
You train chaplains.
And they are the best people in the world. I have a job where really nice people who don't care about making any money, because they don't, come to UAMS to learn how to love people. And I get to train them how to do that. And it is the best job ever in the entire world.
On that note,
yeah,
can't get any better than that. Thank you so much for coming to join me. I have a gift for you.
Well, thank you for asking me. You're awfully nice. And you've been so supportive of me through this long journey of a very crazy life. And thank you a lot.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Everybody needs to read your book.
Absolutely.
The Woman That Wouldn't Talk. It's available on Amazon.com. Look, I've got you a desk set for you to take back to your chaplain class.
I am so excited. Thank you.
So let me tell you.
Is that my jail trip? You are so bad. You are such a bad woman.
You guessed it.
How can I not know I was in jail there? I'm looking at these flags.
Well, one of them's New Mexico.
She has a stand. Are we still on?
Oh, yeah.
A stand of flags that represents every jail I was in. I want you people to know her sense of humor, okay?
Yep, it's pretty
Except for
spot
I
on.
have New Mexico in here because I misread one of your
Oh, my
jails.
God.
So that's the gag
Well,
gift
we have
in
to
there.
keep that.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
that's the gag gift to remind you of that.
This is going to be a great thing to explain to people who come to the chaplain's office. This is my jail tour.
Well, funny you should ask.
Susan, I'm so impressed that you recognized it right off the bat.
Well, one says California. California says California.
California, Oklahoma.
Yeah, and Oklahoma says
Listen,
Oklahoma.
these are different flags. Now, what does that represent?
Yeah.
It has to be the journey,
It's
right?
your journey.
It's the
your
journey.
Thank you again.
That's awfully sweet.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Thank
It gives me a chance to talk about it.
Good.
And that's a promise I made,
Oh.
that I would be their voice.
That's good.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome, Susan. In closing, to our listeners, thank you for spending time with us. We hope you've heard or learned something that's been inspiring or enlightening, and that whatever it is, will help you up your business, your independence, or your life. I'm Kerry McCoy, and I'll see you next time on Up in Your Business. Until then, be brave and keep it up.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. For more of Kerry's interviews, click on either video on the right of the screen. And as always, thank you for watching.